and welcome to Just a Minute, the half-hour of verbal fencing match that we like to think of as a television show. And my guest tonight, well, first our resident raconteur, the man with the most entertaining eyebrows in show business, and sideboards to match, Tony Slattery. Next to Tony, a woman who somehow managed to combine being a Kate Adie of youth programs, the new Barry Norman, and the sexiest woman on television. She's also very good at reviewing films, Mariella Frostrup. On my right, a comedian known and loved for his gentle, self-deprecating sense of humour. Just recently, he's rather modestly produced a book, a radio show, and simultaneously a national tour, all entitled Jeremy Hardy Speaks to the Nation. He is Jeremy Hardy. And lastly, but by no means leastly, a compere and stand-up comedian who was once half of a double act called Fiasco Job Job. Yes, he was, yes. He's also a West End playwright, an ex-international porn star. It could be only Arthur Smith! They are going to try and play Just a Minute, and the rules are ridiculously simple. Until you play the game, and then they become simply ridiculous. Yes, I ask them to speak on the subject that I give them. They try and do that without hesitation, repeating anything, or deviating from the subject. They can challenge at any time. If I uphold the challenge, they gain a point. And if I don't uphold the challenge, the one who's speaking gains a point. They can repeat the subject, which is on the card in front of me. Let us begin the show with this clot on my left, who is sending me up rotten all through my announcements. He's incorrigible. And here's Tony Slattery. The subject we would like you to talk on is what the Butler saw at 10 Downing Street. You have 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
Jeeves the butler wandered the corridors of 10 Downing Street, oak-panelled and nasty, gloomless things that they were. In one room he spied Carol Thatcher, still desperately trying to come to terms with the fact that she's got very bad makeup. And then Mark, who was wandering around the room, not knowing which door to go.
Arthur Smith, you've challenged.
You see, Margaret Thatcher's no longer Prime Minister, is she?
This was a historical account.
The thing is, Arthur, I don't think he was deviating from the subject, because it could be any butler. He has established which butler.
Well, which Downing Street is it?
Well, I think 10 Downing Street does refer to the one where the Prime Minister lives, and it was the butler, obviously, who was in residence at the time that the Thatcher era was occurring. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Fascinating story, so I think you should go on.
I know, it's such an intelligent programme, isn't it? Tony, as I disagree with the challenge, you keep the subject, you get a point for a wrong challenge, and you have 41 seconds starting now.
In another chamber, Dennis was upside down in a plastic bucket of warm malt whiskey. And then the butler came across Margaret Thatcher. Was she at her desk writing? No, she was biting the heads off chickens. This was her normal...
Jeremy, you challenged. Why?
He repeated Thatcher.
He did! Correct challenge from Jeremy Hardy, so he gets a point for that. He takes over the subject. What the Butler saw at 10 Downing Street, 27 seconds starting now.
These images were but incumbent...
I think there was a pause before we started. There was a hesitation. That was a bit harsh.
For laughter, I was just assuming I would get it.
Well, as there was silence when you spoke, you must be a very strange comedian.
Her.
Tony Slattery had a correct challenge, and we have 18 seconds for you to take over the subject, with a point, of course. What the Butler saw at 10 Downing Street, starting now.
The news was indeed bad. Margaret, I'm terribly sorry. You are going...
Mariella.
He repeated Margaret.
You did, you said Margaret Thatcher before. Well, listen, Mariella, you're concentrating. Good girl. What the Butler saw...
I don't normally, you know, I'm only a woman. Normally I can't concentrate at all.
You didn't need to remind us, Mariella. It was blatantly obvious.
What of the only or the woman?
What's that?
What of the only or the woman? Which was it I didn't need to remind you of?
Both, my darling. I've gone. I've peaked already. Mariella, you have the subject. What I was conveying was that you were concentrating whether they were being frivolous. What the butler saw...
You were just having a big flirt. You were going, well done and well remembered, you cheeky little thing.
You little... Anyway, enough of you, Tony.
Enough of you, Tony. Yes.
I'm ready.
You're ready.
On my place.
All right. What the butler saw at 10 Downing Street, Mariella. 14 seconds are left, starting now.
The butler actually saw very little at 10 Downing Street because he was tied up in a closet, blindfolded and wearing a tutu at the time, because that was how Maggie liked to see him. And she liked him to waltz out during dinner parties when she was under the
Jeremy
cabinet.
Hardy, Charles.
Repetition of liked.
Yes, she liked to walk out twice. Jeremy... You have the audience with you, Mariella, it's one thing.
Thank God for something.
And Jeremy lost them a little while ago, but he's got the subject back, and he's got 1 second starting now.
The Antichrist herself.
That whistle tells us that 60 seconds are up, and whoever is speaking at that particular moment gains an extra point. It was on this occasion Jeremy Hardy, and at the end of the round, Jeremy has taken a strong lead ahead of the others. Mariella Frostrup, will you take the next round, please? The subject is What I Did on Richmond Hill. Can you tell us something about that in this game, starting now?
Well, it's funny you should mention Richmond Hill, because I do actually like to go there very often, particularly on Saturday afternoons when I take Tony for his weekly walk. He loves to don a collar and leash and go scampering off doing doggy things.
I believe she said he loves to dong a collar.
She did! Arthur, I have never said dong in my life.
You've never said it.
Right, we will move rapidly on. I think that's anything we can do at this time of the evening. And, Mariella, you still have the subject, What I Did on Richmond Hill. 50 seconds, starting now.
So there's Tony running around.
Tony.
Repetition of Tony.
You had Tony before.
You had
mentioned...
Tony and my...
But you're part of my story. How can I not mention what? There's it.
But that is...
Running around, you know.
That is the challenge. That is the challenge of just a minute, to continue with the story without referring to the person by the same name again.
That was making you so famous in the story, and you... I can't believe you.
Mariella. he is a Don collar, right?
But he was my friend.
48 seconds are left on What I Did on Richmond Hill, Tony, starting now.
On Richmond Hill, unlike on Blueberry Hill, where I left my heart, on Richmond Hill, I deposited...
Arthur Smith.
There's too many hills on there.
You can, it's on the card. You can repeat the subject on the card. You don't have to repeat the whole phrase. You can take any word and repeat it.
No.
Oh.
That is the rule. They always have been, Arthur.
I've got a correct challenge, though.
Yeah.
What was
You
that?
don't find your heart on Blueberry Hill. You leave your heart. You find your thrill on Blueberry
You
Hill.
are actually Don Collar.
Leave your heart. No, Jeffrey, I am a doctor. You leave your heart in San Francisco. You find your thrill on Blueberry Hill.
And you leave your liver on Wimbledon.
And very soon I think you may need a doctor, Jeremy. But actually, no, he was not deviating or repeating anything within the rules of just a minute. So, Tony, it was an incorrect challenge. You keep the subject. What I Did on Richmond Hill, 43 seconds starting now.
I simply walked up to the top and scanned the London skyline. Look, there's where Nicholas Parsons live. Over there, I see Jeremy Hardy, and both of them communicating by semaphore and flashlights, proclaiming their love to each other over the London hills.
Yes, sir.
We've had London, we've had hills, we've had dongs, we've had the lot.
Yes, the word on the card is hill, and hills was repeated. So, Arthur, at last, you have a correct challenge. You've been trying very hard, and that's the subject. 27 seconds starting now.
Richmond Hill is an old pal of mine, and what I did on him the other night really is too disgusting to discuss here on a family programme. However, let it be said that he did come away smelling somewhat of the deep, tumescent whiff of the River Thames, which flows so beautifully through the heart. I'm talking Kenneth Williams.
Mariella, you have challenged.
Wasn't he deviating with the Thames? I mean, the Thames, Richmond
I think the
Hill,
Thames
where
does
are
go
we?
quite near to Richmond, so...
Not very near.
But near enough. I don't think... No,
Fascinating discussion.
I know it is.
How near, though? So what's Richmond Bridge then? What does that go over?
If Richmond Hill is a man. So how do you know the time?
Oh, you can go off. I know you haven't played before. You can take it in any way. You know, otherwise it's too impossible, Marion. No, I can't agree with the challenge. Arthur, incorrect challenge. You have another point. You have the subject, and there are only 4 seconds left, starting now.
Walking down on Richmond Hill, da 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 da.
Oh, yes. No, he's going first. Repetition of da. Yes. Point to Jeremy Hardy. Got him with half a second to go on the subject. Starting now.
Da do.
Hardy was speaking as the whistle went, gained an extra point for doing so, and has increased his lead at the end of the round. And Jeremy, we'd like you to take the next round. Will you tell us something about Aylesbury duck? The audience like that. There are 60 seconds, starting now.
Aylesbury duck is not rhyming slang as people often think. It is in fact a recipe involving duck and Aylesbury. What you do is you take Aylesbury, let it sit for 5 minutes, then roll it lightly in seasoned flour and shove a duck right into it. Then baste it in your own saliva and pop it in the microwave for 15 seconds. Then remove, sauté, and leave for Delia Smith to find.
I thought it was magnificent, Jeremy. And I think he should be allowed to carry on. I want to see what comes out in the end. No, I don't.
No, I think we should hear from you on Aylesbury duck. I'm sure you've got something to say. There are 42 seconds left, starting now.
Aylesbury is twinned with a mud flat in Siberia. In that town, people often find that there are low-flying geese going by, in which case they are required to go like that. And that is Aylesbury duck. Other things that occur in the town in question are that great octopuses fly by extraordinary...
I'm sorry, there were 2 flies there.
Yes, the word fly. Yeah, we can't have too many flies on this show. No, they're all under the table at the moment. So, I agree with your challenge, Tony. You have 18 seconds on Aylesbury duck, starting now.
One of the best ways to eat Aylesbury duck is just pop it in your mouth, and then it'll go down the digestive system through the process of peristalsis and come out the other end. But another recipe is to serve it with bauxite and strontium-90. And
a slight hesitation on strontium-90.
Yes. Jeremy, you had a correct challenge. You have 6 seconds on Aylesbury duck, starting now.
Duck à l'orange is a different and entirely putrid dish, which involves fruit, which I don't think should be put with...
And once again, our first-time player of the game, Jeremy Hardy, was speaking as the whistle went and gained an extra point for doing so, and has gone even further into the lead at the end of that round. If you want to know, Tony Slattery is in second place, then comes Arthur Smith, and then Mariella Frostrup. And Mariella is going to begin the next round. We are now going to have an object. Instead of me giving them a subject, I'm presenting an object to them. Isn't that adorable? A pussycat. Right, there's the object. Mariella, you have 60 seconds. Will you talk on that object starting now?
Well, if you don't mind me saying so, and if my eyes don't deceive me, I think that is a stuffed, dead moggy, which is something I hate more than life itself, in fact. My mother has hundreds of them. They roam around the house. They make me sneeze and cough, and often cry. This particular cat, though, is a famous cat. I believe that it belongs to Dick Whittington.
There's 2 cats.
Give it to Arthur.
That's a correct challenge. There are 41 seconds. Will you tell us something about this object starting now?
As a conceptual artist, I see this not as a cat, but as a tower block.
Yes.
Very long hesitation indeed.
Well, it's just like a lie, you know, I was waiting to die down.
It had been buried.
He tried to ride a laugh and slipped off his vehicle. Right, now then, Jeremy, you have a point for a correct challenge. It was a pause. 34 seconds starting now.
The cat is not a fish, as people often think. It is, in fact, a mammal, and has a tiny pouch from which the eggs are produced.
Mariella.
It's not true.
It's
nonsense.
Yes, you know.
Seasonally adjusted, that's all.
Mariella, you have another point. You have this object here. 26 seconds starting now.
This object here actually belonged to Dick Whittington. And it is, in fact, a pantomime beep. I can't actually say what it is because I've been told that I'm not allowed to do that. I don't know very much about the said Mr. Beep.
Slattery.
A bit of hesitation, I'm sorry.
Yes, there was. But also, Mariella, as you have
I don't need you to
correctly...
condescend to me.
An aggressive mood. At least I'm not behaving like Nicholas, you dirty little... You've got a couple of points.
You know, Teddy, the awful thing is I am just about to give Mariella another point. She gets a bonus point because she correctly identified the object. It is Dick Whittington's cat, a reproduction of it. So she gets a bonus point for it.
What sort of ranting, drug-induced gibberish is this? Dick Whittington's cat, and it's an accurate copy.
But of course it's stuffed and dead. It's been dead for a long time, you can tell.
When I saw Dick
That was a
Whittington's
bit,
cat, it
actually.
was played by Joanna Lumley. Not that. The cat talks in the pantomime. The cat said nothing. Stop going round, you're making me ill.
This is a traditional cat as supports Dick Whittington in the pantomime, which Mariella Frostrup, with her deep intelligence, informed us. So she gets the bonus point. Yes! And Slattery, I'm always fair. You did have a correct challenge. You get a point for that. You have this object, and it's 12 seconds left starting now.
This is the thing which for many years has been masquerading as Bruce Forsyth's toupee. It doesn't really blend in with the rest of his face because he uses cool copper, the same type of makeup that Philip Schofield uses, not necessarily on that part.
Slattery speaking as the whistle went, and he gained that extra point for doing so. The cat will about to disappear, and yes, I thought it might.
Thank God for that.
I think it's got something wrong with its insides, actually. And we've reached the halfway mark in the contest. But let me tell you what the score, as we go into the halfway mark. Jeremy Hardy's still in the lead, just 3 points ahead of Tony Slattery. He's 1 point ahead of Mariella Frostrup, and she's 2 points ahead of Arthur Smith. Isn't it exciting? I'm sure you are thrilled to hear that. And after that harrowing bout of verbal aggression, it's time for us to limp off to the first aid tent. But we will be back, and we'll see you, or more likely, you will see us after this.
Just a minute with the Evening Standard.
Welcome back to Just a Minute, and let's plunge headlong into the undignified squabble that we like to call the second half of the show. I'm not going to give our panelists a subject. I'm going to ask the audience to give them a subject on which they would like one of them to speak. So, may we have some suggestions for subjects? Yes, that gentleman over there, yes.
Radio Days.
Radio Days, a lovely one, yes. Anybody, yes, another suggestion, that gentleman there. Stand up, please.
Nelson's Column.
Nelson's Column, yes, and the same to you. Any other suggestions? Please stand up with a suggestion. Yes, the lady at the back there.
What do you keep under your bed?
What do you keep... Yes. What do you keep under your bed? I think that is a good subject. Arthur, would you tell us something about what you keep under your bed, Arthur? 60 seconds starting now.
Under my bed, I keep Big Ben, Nelson's Column, and a number of other London monuments. Because I have an absolutely enormous thing on which I sleep. This is because I am very fat.
Repetition of because.
Yes, you did say because before. Mariella, well, listen, 45 seconds are left. Will you tell us what you keep under your bed? 45 seconds starting now.
Under my bed, I don't keep any of the same things that Arthur does. In fact, I keep lots and lots of young men.
And you've challenged.
And I said lots and lots. But I was overcome. I wanted to tell you all about it. And now you're never going to know what I keep under my bed, and there was a lot more there.
Oh, darn, or should I say dong?
Will you tell us what you keep under your bed, Tony Slattery, in 39 seconds starting now.
Under my bed, I keep a selection of early Louis XIV 17th century ball gowns. When I fancy going out on the town, I wander up and down Piccadilly, and someone says to me, "Ooh, who are you looking at, madam?"
Yes,
Repetition of ooh.
that's right. Ooh, well... So, Mariella, you see, you lose the subject, you get it back, another point, and 25 seconds. What you keep under your bed starting now.
Under my bed, I also keep my family, but it's a bit of a problem because they tend to argue all the time and they tend to try and join in as well. Repetition of 10.
Repetition of 10, yes. 19 seconds for you, Tony, on what you keep under your bed starting now.
Also, low-cut bras, cantilevered corsets, and a rubber basque. This is generally...
Hysteria.
Yes,
Deviation, hysteria, and stumbling and all that sort of stuff.
Yes, laughing at his own jokes. This is right. 11 seconds for you to tell us, Mariella, starting now.
There's John, Tony, Fred, Nick, Arthur, Jeremy, Tony, Nicholas.
I haven't been under your bed twice.
No way.
So, Tony, I think it's you, isn't it? That's the subject. 6 seconds, starting now.
Under my bed, I keep Nicholas Parsons Strange.
Oh, yes.
I just pressed it. I'm deviating by pressing. Please.
I thought you mentioned, you mentioned Nicholas Parsons under his bed. I think it's a very devious thought. Arthur.
Yes. Oh, right. It was a lucky challenge.
Yes. 5 seconds are left. What do you keep under your bed starting now?
Under my bed, I keep an enormous red balloon, which wells it up.
There was a hesitation.
A big hesitation.
Yes.
And you got in with half a second to go on what do you keep under your bed starting now.
Dirty Bunty comics.
As we move into the final round, which Jeremy Hardy will take, and the subject is Maidenhead. There are 60 seconds as usual, and you begin now.
Maidenhead is in Berks, which again is not rhyming slang, but short for Berkshire. It also means virginity, which people tend to try and lose. Although you may find that once you have lost it, a policeman finds it outside the police station and brings it round. I think...
Hesitation.
Yes, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, Mariella. Will you tell us something about Maidenhead? 43 seconds starting now.
Maidenhead means a woman of virtue, a woman who's bright, intelligent.
There are too many women.
A woman of virtue, a woman who's bright, intelligent.
So we're going to hear from everybody.
I'm going now. I'm sorry.
No, don't.
I'm out of here.
No, you've contributed so much.
I'm going back to all those young men under my bed.
Right, Tony, you had a correct challenge. So 21 seconds for you on Maidenhead starting now.
Does anyone remember the piece of frozen confectionery called Strawberry Mivies? It's unlikely that you would...
Mariella Frostrup.
Deviation.
What's it got to do with Maidenhead? Nothing. Mariella, you have the subject back. I'm glad you stayed. 15 seconds. Maidenhead starting now.
Maidenhead is a town in the home counties where a lot of people who like to ride horses, eat cream teas, and look down on their neighbours live. It's not only...
Tony challenged.
Well, that's just gibberish. Look down on their neighbours live. That's what I mean. They like to look down on their neighbours live.
Yeah,
They're Swedish. They like to look down on where their neighbours live.
I am, funnily enough, almost Swedish. So you've almost got it right, but you've got no right to challenge me.
Tony. Yes, in Sweden they do speak like that sometimes. Right, Tony.
What accent was that?
Tony, no, take that one away from Tony. Just giving Tony a point there. No, he's not going to have Tony. We're in the last round. There are 7 seconds left. Mariella's never played the game before, and it's an even contest, and I think she has the benefit of the doubt, so she carries on with Maidenhead. 7 seconds starting now.
Maidenhead lies on the banks of the Thames and is very close to Marlow, Henley, and lots of other little towns. It's a beautiful place.
Jeremy, yes.
Repetition of towns.
Yes, you had towns before, yes. You got in with half a second to go. Maidenhead starting now.
Maidenhead begins...
Jeremy Hardy speaking as the whistle went, and getting an extra point for doing so. And at the end of the round, it was a very even contest. Our joint winners this week, Mariella Frostrup and Tony Slattery. So, from Tony Slattery, Mariella Frostrup, Jeremy Hardy, Arthur Smith, and myself, Nicholas Parsons, it is goodbye until we seize the airwaves again with another round of Just a Minute. Until then, from all of us here, goodbye. Audience, hello and welcome to Just a Minute, the radio game show that's now on television, so Radio 4 listeners may still prefer to watch it with their eyes shut. I didn't write the joke, it's all right, I don't mind. With which thoughts, let me introduce my guests, and firstly my resident guest and constant companion. In fact, we've been seen together so often now people are beginning to talk. Yes, they're saying surely they must have gone off each other by now. Yes, it's television's Mr. Tony Slattery. Sitting next to Tony is an improviser, comedian, keyboard player and nuclear physicist. Yes, he's television's Mr. Improvised Comedy Keyboard Playing Nuclear Physicist, Dr. Richard Vranch. On my right, a comedian with a cheeky grin, a glint in his eye and an unusual mole on his left buttock. Or so I was told. He's a very funny man indeed. Television's Mr. Very Funny Man indeed with the unusual mole on his left buttock, Tony Hawks. And last, and again by no means least, lending some gravity to the otherwise frivolous proceedings, we have a man who is a broadcaster, gourmet, politician, aviator, and columnist. He's flown in, cooked us a meal, made a programme about it, reviewed it in the papers, and then had it banned by Act of Parliament. Sir Clement Freud. Right, for those of you who may be new to Just a Minute, it's very simple. The rules are, well, the rules such as they are. I try to interpret them, but basically, I ask each panellist in turn to speak on a subject that I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitating, repeating anything, or deviating from the subject. And of course they can challenge, they gain points if I uphold the challenge, and whoever is speaking, if I don't uphold the challenge, gains a point. And they can repeat the subject as well, yes. So let's carry on. It'll all become clear as we play the game. Tony Slattery, he's going to begin the show this week. Tony, double parking. Can you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
I looked out of the window this morning, and to my surprise, I saw someone trying to park a Fiesta car. The person in question had on a red blazer and a blue polo neck. I rushed down. I looked in that individual's face.
Clement Freud, chap.
He's looked twice.
Oh, I have.
Yes, you look too strongly there. Clement, you have a correct challenge, so you get a point for that. You take over the subject, which is double parking. There are 44 seconds left, starting now.
Double parking is a not unusual chess move, rather like the poison pawn or the Sicilian defense. What happens is that you move rook to knight's queen 2.
And Richard Vranch challenge.
I think there was a hesitation
You
after the
think
two.
it? There
Yes,
definitely
there
was.
Yes.
He made up something completely fallacious and then stopped. Right, double parking's with you, Richard Vranch, and there are 29 seconds left, starting now.
Double parking is one of the perils of flat ownership. Now 3 or 4 different families live in one building and they've all got at least one vehicle. They have...
Tony Slattery.
Sorry, that was harsh, but there were 2 ones very close. One vehicle, one family.
Yes,
Yep.
one
Sorry.
family, yes.
Sorry.
But a correct challenge, no less. So another point to you, Tony. Don't be embarrassed. That's the toughness of the game. 20 seconds.
That's right, Nick.
Yeah. 20 seconds are left for you on double parking, Tony, starting now.
The point I was trying to make is that I looked into the face... Oh, my God! That's awful. I'm so sorry.
That's the 3rd time you've looked.
I know. It's pathetic. I'm so sorry. I apologise.
No, the way you look, yes, but it can't be helped. There we are. 18 seconds, Richard, on double parking, starting now.
I double parked once in Kensington, and the traffic wardens there were particularly harsh on me. They took me out of my vehicle and...
Tony Hawks, a challenge.
Repetition of vehicle.
Yes, you had a vehicle last time you were speaking,
right.
I'm afraid. Tony Hawks, you have a point, a correct challenge, of course, and the subject of double parking, 10 seconds, starting now.
I once worked as a chauffeur for Roger Moore's Double. So in a sense, every time I park...
Clement Freud.
Roger Moore's double is repetition.
It's a repetitious thought, but he wasn't repeating anything in just a minute. But Clement, what we'll do is give you a bonus point because the audience enjoyed your challenge. But Tony gets a point for being interrupted. He keeps the subject 6 seconds, double parking starting now.
Yesterday morning, I got up and looked out of the window. To my surprise, I saw a man in a red blazer with a blue polo neck shirt. Double parking.
That whistle tells us that 60 seconds are up, and whoever is speaking at that moment gains an extra point. On this occasion it was Tony Hawk, so he's taken the lead at the end of that round, but they've all scored points, and we move forward to the second round. Richard Vranch is going to take the second round. The subject, London pubs. Richard, will you tell us something about those in this game starting now?
Isn't it great to have a local pub, a place you can go in any time of day and everybody knows your name? I have an establishment just up the road from me, and when I walk through the door, all the clientele turn around and say, "Hello, Richard, how are you?" And I say, "I'm very well, thank you. I'll have a pint of your..."
Tony Hawks.
I just want to know if this is a pub for children.
It did sound a little bit like Listen with Mother, didn't it?
Hello, Richard, how are you today? Oh, I'm splendid, thank you very much.
Yes, it was good fun, wasn't it? So what's your challenge within just a minute?
Hanging out with small children. Deviation.
No, all right, a bonus point to Tony Hawks, but a point to Richard for being interrupted. He keeps going on London pubs, 40 seconds starting now.
The great thing about London pubs is they charge you much more than...
Tony Slattery.
Sorry, this is not a word, a charge.
It's
going a bit camp. They charge you. This jacket costs charge me £8.
I thought he said he just left the pub. They sold me that pub. Right, 36
I thought you overdid that slightly, actually, Nicholas,
I know.
didn't you? You kind of lost them halfway through.
Well, no, I didn't get them at all, actually. That's why I went on, but it was too late by then.
You're doing it again.
36 seconds, Tony Slattery, London pub, starting now.
I go to a strange pub in London called the Cantilevered Bra, and the publican behind the element which you might call a surface on which they serve drinks looks remarkably like Nicholas Parsons.
Clement Freud.
A repetition of like.
Yes, you said like before, and now looking remarkably like Nicholas Parsons.
Quite harsh.
Yes. But accurate, unfortunately. Clement, you have a correct... Yes, all right. It doesn't matter. They're talking about us, Tony. Be careful. The 24 seconds are left for London pub, starting now.
The London pub that I like best is in Camden Hill and has 5 ladies' loos and no gents, which does make it awfully difficult for people of the male gender. Often...
Tony Slattery.
I'm sorry, was there a pause there?
Yes, there was a pause. Yes. I think he was trying to work out of these... I don't know, I think it's amazing. 11 seconds, London pubs with you, Tony, starting now.
Yes, I've been to the pub which Clement refers to, and there are indeed many...
Tony Hawks got in.
It may well have been a repetition of the word many.
It was definitely. 6 seconds for you, Tony. Another point as well. London pub starting now.
What a marvellous place to begin a courtship, a London pub. You look over at the beauty the other side of the bar and say, "Oi, you."
On that occasion, it was Tony Hawks who was speaking as a whistle went, gained an extra point for doing so, and he's taken a very strong lead at the end of the round. Clement Freud, will you take the next round? The Buckingham Palace shop. Will you tell us something about that in this game? 60 seconds, starting now.
The Buckingham Palace shop is an expression to denote when a footman or royal flunky discloses information about a prince or princess to the tabloids. And a pretty disgraceful game it is, to my way of thinking. The Daily Mirror and other newspapers, smaller in size than I would care to read on a morning, pay good money to get information which is salacious and often untruthful. I am against the Buckingham Palace shop, which is why I so favour the opening of a place where citizens and...
Tony Hawks challenge.
Was there hesitation there?
I think there was a hesitation. Freud, you've won them over magnificently, yes. All right. But I think there was. I think he was
actually buzzed by accident. I just leant on it, really. I think it put him off, and then... sorry about that.
I think I have to give the benefit of the doubt, and on this occasion it goes to you, Tony Hawk's a point, and the Buckingham Palace shop, 23 seconds starting now.
I don't know very much about the Buckingham Palace shop.
And Richard Vranch.
That's deviation, then. Who doesn't know much about it?
It's not deviation.
It's a subject, so if he doesn't know anything about it, he must
But
deviate.
it doesn't matter if he doesn't know anything about it. An object will come up there soon. You've got to maybe know anything about it. You've got to talk about it.
All right, then.
I would have slightly given away the object round.
I think this show has been going for a number of weeks, and probably of our regular viewers do know we have an object round.
I love you.
But don't reveal it in public. All right. So, Richard, you have to keep going. I know you haven't played the game as often as the Slatteries of this world, but you have to keep going whether you know anything about the subject or not.
Okay.
The Buckingham Palace shop, 20 seconds. Another point to you, Tony Hawk, starting now.
I ask myself the question, does the Buckingham Palace shop sell King Edward potatoes? It might be the kind of thing that they would sell inside.
And Clement Freud challenge.
2 zells.
There were 2 zells, yes, Clement. So you have the subject back again. Another point to in 11 seconds, starting now.
An awful lot of people queue down Buckingham Palace Road in order to get entry.
I
think there was a hesitation on
yes, but I think he was trying to say the Mall is where they queue. Right, so Tony, 6 seconds.
No. I was not trying to say the Mall.
Well, don't they queue down the Mall?
Not for the Buckingham Palace shop, no.
Oh, I see. They queue down Buckingham Palace Road. Oh, well, we stand corrected, don't we? 6 seconds for you on the Buckingham Palace shop. Tony Slattery, starting now.
In the Buckingham Palace shop, I bought a wind-up Princess Margaret, which comes apart. And inside there are lots of miniatures of whiskey and gin. It's the most...
Slattery was then speaking as a whistle when gained an extra point. He's in second place now. Tony Hawk's is still in the lead, and then Clement, Freud and Richard Vranch in that order. And Tony Hawk's, it's his turn to begin. The subject, Berkeley Square. Will you tell us something about that magnificent square in this game, starting now?
That certain day you passed my way, there was music abroad in the air, and as I stopped to smile at you, a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square, a marvellous 40s song which has filled our house as I grew up, my mother singing at the piano. Oh, such joys were shared by our familial gatherings round about Christmas. I was so intrigued by the place, I went there once wearing an anorak. Not relevant to the story, but one I thought I'd throw in anyway. This was a disappointment, given the way I'd been introduced to it as a child, as a romantic location where you might meet the sweetheart of your dreams who would whisk you off your feet and take you to a very special place where cake and chocolate is eaten. I have a feeling no one's going to buzz me here.
Richard Vranch, yes, you judge.
We were getting way off Berkeley Square. Cake and chocolate.
And he only had 2 seconds to go. Oh, you have really alienated yourself from this audience, Richard. Yes, they wanted him to go. He was so romantic. I didn't know there was so much romance in your soul, Tony. I really did.
Well,
Steady.
Oh, God, Slattery, you're impossible. Richard, you did actually have a correct challenge. So within the rules of the game, I give you a point, and you take over the subject of Berkeley Square with only 2 seconds to go, and the anger of the audience starting now.
Berkeley Square.
And, oh, Tony Slattery, challenge you.
The challenge is not much. It's just that I think the audience hate you so much they'll uphold my challenge. No, but that was a way to win the sympathy back for you.
Oh! It hasn't. It's won it for you, you lot.
No, it's not.
Right, you've got 1.5 seconds on Berkeley Square. Tony Slattery starting now.
An albatross.
Oh, Richard Vranch's challenge, yes.
I just wanted to finish off the minute,
Yes, that's right, yes. You have another correct challenge there. Berkeley Square's back with you, Richard. 1 second starting now.
Berkeley
Yes,
He started before the second.
absolutely right. Yes, Tony Slattery, another point. Starting now. No. Tony Hawks.
Could I have a go?
Right, 1 second starting now.
Always stand
Yes, well
on.
done. Yes.
It's just he's got a nasty shirt.
A wrong challenge. So Tony Hawks finishes the round. No, you want him to finish the round. Right. So
you have minds of your own.
Half a second on Berkeley Square, Tony Hawk, starting now.
Clement Freud is one of the...
So Tony Hawk started with the subject and very rightly finished with it. He lost 2 seconds of time to Richard Vranch and Tony Slattery, who were having a game on their own over on this side of the table. We're going to do something slightly different now. Instead of me giving them a subject, we're going to present to them an object. This, look at that. And I'm sure if you tried to eat that, you'd feel exactly like that noise. Right. Tony Slattery, there is an object. You might know what it is, you might not. Would you talk about it in 60 seconds, starting now?
I suffer very badly from hay fever, which means I have to take certain drugs called antihistamines, one of which is oxymetazoline hydrochloride, which is a vasoconstrictor, which means it makes this...
Clement Freud challenge.
3 witches. 2 I would have gone for,
yes,
but...
so which means. Clement Freud, you have a correct challenge. You have this object in front of us, and there are 47 seconds starting now.
The object in front of us is a plate of jellied eels, a quite delicious confection which is set in what is called in the East End of London liquor, but is actually the juice in which the fish is cooked and then set because of the...
Richard Vranch.
2 sets?
Yes, that's right. So Richard, well listen, 29 seconds for you to tell us something about the object starting now.
The scale model of a Norwegian fjord before us is a very accurate model indeed.
Tony Slattery.
There were 2 models.
There were 2 models, yes. So Tony, you've got in again, another point, of course. And there's the object in front of you, 23 seconds, starting now.
All right, not to put too fine a point on it, medically, if health is...
Tony Hawk's challenge.
I think hesitation.
You're definitely right, and you've cleverly got him with only half a second to go. There is the object, half a second, starting now.
Here is an example of what can happen.
Once again, Tony Hawks are speaking as the... That's what happens if you eat jellied eels. Tony Hawks is speaking as the whistle went and gained an extra point for doing so. He has increased his lead at the end of the round. We've come to the halfway mark in the contest, such as it is. Tony Hawks is definitely in the lead ahead of Richard Vranch, then Tony Slattery, and in last place, because he wishes me to mention it, Clement Freud. And this is the point where we take the time to rub witch hazel on each other's sensibilities, and for that we'll need some privacy. So we'll see you after this. Welcome back to Just a Minute, and we're going to have some more minutes in just a minute, but now I'm not going to give our panelists a subject. I'm going to ask our audience to give them a subject. Is there any subject any member of the audience would like any one of these 4 bright sparks to talk about? If you have a subject, leap up and give it to me. There's a gentleman there. Yes, what is the subject?
Tony Slattery's Sideburns.
Yes, I've noticed them. Yes. Are you trying to bring back the sideburn, are you, Tony? Any other suggestions?
Docker's disgusting habits.
Docker's disgusting habits, and I think Tony Slattery's Sideburns is a very good one. Yes. And Tony Hawks, will you tell us something about Tony Slattery's Sideburns in 60 seconds, if you can, starting now?
Interestingly enough, Tony Slattery's Sideburns used to be mine, but he stole them off me just before the show began. He crept into my dressing room when I was taking a little nap, and with his scissors, chopped them away from the side of my face, placing them on his lovely cheeks. Now they adorn his visage with a marvellous complexion. I don't want to carry on.
So, Richard, you challenge, yes?
Yeah, he doesn't want to carry on.
He doesn't want to carry on, so we call it hesitation. Richard, will you tell us something about Tony Slattery's Sideburns? 35 seconds, starting now.
A little-known fact about Tony Slattery's Sideburns are that the left one is...
Tony Slattery.
Sorry, that's quite bad grammar. A little-known fact are...
Is.
That's a deviation from the English language.
I know, and I'm glad you got in, because I'd like you to tell us something about your sideburns. And you have 31 seconds, starting now.
Curiously enough, these sideburns aren't mine at all. They come came from leftover bits of Lionel Blair. He was in panto once, I believe, with Una Stubbs, and he fell into a threshing machine. And he suffered an appalling facial injury, which is why he's got the hairstyle he has now. But the stuff which actually plummeted to the floor, I picked up, and in a rather Blue Peter way, got some sticky back plastic and a couple of fairy liquid bottles, and I mashed the whole thing together. And that is why I now look like Gareth Hunt or one of the other people.
Tony Slattery was speaking as the whistle went, telling us a completely fictitious story about his sideburns. But he did get a point for speaking as the whistle went, and at the end of that round, he's still in second place. Clement Freud, will you take the next round? The one that's been thought of by Ian Messiter is rather a bizarre one. Hampstead to Putney by bus. Yes, I thought it would set you alight. The audience have gone hysterical. Clement Freud, would you take the subject? And 60 seconds starting now.
It would be a very foolish thing to do, because a train from Euston to Richmond enables one to get on at West Hampstead and emerge at Putney. And a very happy time would be had by anyone in this sparkling atmosphere which Underground Railways London region, in brackets, provides for all those season ticket holders and old age pensioners who, provided they do not travel in peak times, may show a card whereby...
There was a hesitation.
There was a hesitation, yeah. I think it
was provocation.
I've never heard such magnificent rubbish in my life. Well done, Clement. Yes, it is, I know. Hampstead to Putney by bus, Richard. 26 seconds are left, starting now.
Hampstead Heath is a marvellous place to wait for a bus before the thing arrives.
Tony Hawks.
Buses don't go on Hampstead Heath. People walk their dogs on Hampstead Heath. It's a disastrous place to wait for a bus.
That's why you can wait for so long.
But it's still very pleasant.
It is. No, actually, there is now a bus service which goes right over the top of Hampstead Heath beside the Whitestone Pond.
Oh,
so it was an incorrect
I bow
challenge.
to all you Hampstead livers.
Hampstead livers? I haven't got a liver. Well, I've a Hampstead one anyway. Richard Vranch was an incorrect challenge. And 22 seconds since London Putney by bus.
I haven't got a Hampstead liver, so yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm giving myself the toaster for £2. It's the quiz of the week from Norwich. You still think you're there, don't you? You're wearing the same clothes, the same jokes.
I'm not. Richard Branch, you had a correct challenge. You have Hampstead to Putney by bus, and there are 22 seconds starting now.
From the top deck of the bus as you travel south, you can see most marvellous things in London. I once noticed...
Tony
I'm
Hawks.
sorry, but I think it was a marvellous place to wait for the bus on Hampstead Heath before.
That's right.
Too marvellous.
Quite right.
That's right. Well, listen, Tony Hawks. 15 seconds for you to tell us something about Hampstead to Putney by bus, starting now.
You could begin your journey on the 24 bus from Hampstead Heath and go down to Trafalgar Square. Then it would be necessary to change onto a 17. Tony
Slattery, yes?
Well, that's my preferred mode of travel, the wah-wah.
All right, hesitation, Tony, you've got in with 3 seconds on Hampstead to Putney by bus, starting now.
I got onto the Hampstead to Putney bus, and I couldn't believe what I saw.
Clement Freud challenge.
There is no such animal.
There's no Hampstead to Putney bus.
Oh,
No, there is a bus.
That's true.
No, you cannot get to Putney by, you can go down the other side to Finchley Road and get on the 28 bus, but you cannot get on this. I'm a bus commuter. I've never been on a show that has actually made me hysterical before. Clement Freud, you have a correct challenge. 1 second on Hampstead to Putney by bus, starting now.
West is the direction in which you would travel.
So, the whistle went and Clement Freud was speaking at that moment, gained an extra point for doing so.
Have I won?
What's that?
Have I won?
No, you have won a distinction for yourself. No. But the man who took the lead right at the beginning and held it through thick and thin to the end, we say he's the winner this week, Tony Hawks. And after that terrifying insight into the origins of gang warfare, it's time to say goodbye. So, from Tony Slattery, Richard Vranch, Tony Hawks and Clement Freud, and myself, Nicholas Parsons, we do hope you have enjoyed the show. And you'll be with us when once again we take to the air and we play Just a Minute. Till then, from all of us, goodbye.
And without fear of repetition, there's a new Just a Minute at the same time next Thursday.
Welcome to Just a Minute, a gracious and civilized game of erudition, articulacy and wit, with 8 rounds, 2 submissions, or a knockout to decide the winner. First, my guests, and as usual, I'm accompanied by my close friend, bodyguard, hairstylist and home help, Tony Slattery. Next to Tony, a comedy writer and performer who's written and starred in award-winning radio comedy series, as well as being a stand-up comedian. He's written for Dave Allen and episodes of the last series of Drop the Dead Donkey. It is Nick Revell. And on my right, one of the founding fathers of British satire, personally responsible for the downfall of the Macmillan government in 1963. He's at it again on the Rory Bremner show, which has the major government not inconsiderably concerned. It's John Fortune. And lastly, one of the veterans of Just a Minute. He's been with the show since it started on radio 27 years ago. Actor, producer, author, after-dinner speaker, and television's first ever comedy monk. It's Derek Nimmo! Those are the 4 who this week are going to play Just a Minute, and the rules are ridiculously simple until you try and play the game. And then they're simply ridiculous. I ask them to speak in turn, if they can, on the subject that I give them. They try and do that without hesitating, without repeating anything or deviating from the subject. They can repeat the subject on the card. That's all they can do. They can challenge, of course. And if I uphold the challenge, they gain a point, and if not, the one who's speaking gains a point. And we begin the show this week with My Elephant and Castle. Will you tell us something about that in this game, starting now?
My elephant and castle. Oh, my dear, you must be my elephant and castle.
So said the King of England when he was introduced to a lady from Spain who was known as the Infanta from Castile. And as the king did not speak very good English, he thought that...
I think there was repetition of king there.
There was a repetition of king, I'm afraid. Yeah. And Tony Slattery, you had a correct challenge. You have My Elephant and Castle, 42 seconds, starting now.
Well, in the 8 tons of colour supplements that attach themselves to today's Sunday Times, there's often a feature which is about one's favourite place, like My Islington or My Blackburn. You never hear My...
Yes.
My.
Yes. Oh, no, My is on the card, My Elephant and Castle. You can use the word.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't got to put down elephant card right there.
You left it on.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Please, your indulgence. He's so frightfully gracious with it, isn't he?
Tony, you have any...
Pompous is the word you were looking for.
Yes, but I'm not as rude as you, Derek. I don't use those words.
I'm trying to be accurate, that's all.
And rude as well. Right, Tony, you have a point for an incorrect challenge. You keep the subject. 30 seconds are left. My Elephant and Castle, starting now.
My Elephant and Castle. Well, I know the place. I live quite near there. How to describe it? It's a series of not terribly concentric circles which continually bypass...
Yes, John.
You can't have not terribly concentric circles.
No, they can either be concentric or not. A very shrewd, yes, very shrewd. What I call an intellectual challenge.
We're going to get more than that.
Right. John, are you ready?
Yes.
Take over. 23 seconds. My Elephant and Castle, starting now.
I don't have an elephant, but I have a castle, a small model of a castle, which I keep in my toy cupboard. You may be surprised that I still have a toy cupboard at my age.
Derek Nimmo challenge.
I'm rather surprised you've got 2 toy cupboards.
Yes, because you repeated toy cupboard. It's a difficult game.
Difficult game, isn't
I know. But they do love the way you. We do love the way you play it, John, and that's important. Derek,
Stop patronising.
I only flirt with the opposite sex when they come on the show. Derek.
Oh, yes.
That is to stop all those stories about you and me. Right.
I don't want them stopped. I want the flames of rumour fanned. I want to run my fingers lightly over your dreaming body. I want a shipwreck in your thighs.
Yes, all right.
The toy closet.
Indeed. Are the Sunday tabloids listening? Right. Derek Nimmo, you had a correct challenge. Another point for you. 16 seconds. My Elephant and Castle starting now.
The Elephant and the Castle actually was the crest of the Cutler's Company, because in times of war, long gone, elephants used to carry on their backs castles, and ivory was the product of the elephant, and therefore the aforementioned flatware makers used it as their...
Well, on that occasion, it was Derek Nimmo speaking as the whistle went, gained the extra point for doing so. He's equal now in the lead with John Fortune. And Derek Nimmo, we'd like you to take the next round. Oh, a long one. This.
Can I write it down, please?
Yes, you do, because you left out the my last time. We do know that. What I would do with Battersea Power Station. What I would do with Battersea Power Station. 60 seconds as usual, starting...
Hang on.
This is not the radio,
right,
you know. They've got pictures.
Okay.
You're perfectly boring when you're writing things down there, Derek. What I would do...
Perfectly boring when you're not doing anything at all, you do.
Oh, gosh, it's so rude, isn't it? Right. What I would do with Battersea Power Station starting now.
What I would do... I've always had tremendous desire to turn...
Yeah.
There was a stumble there, hesitation.
It was not at all.
You said I've always had a desire.
I did not.
No, look, I'll show you how fair I am. In spite of what he's just said to me, I don't think he stumbled. I think he changed direction, but didn't put it... Blah, blah, blah. So you keep the subject, 57 seconds. What I would do with Battersea Power Station starting now.
I think basically, Battersea Power...
Sorry, I thought he was going to try and say Battersea.
Yes, he was, but he failed.
Do you think so? Was that? No, I think he got out of it rather well.
No, that was hesitation, because it was...
sure?
Or deviation from...
I might have deviated. I might have made a total cock-up of it, but I didn't actually hesitate.
Well, you did all those things, so all right. Nick Revell, you have 56 seconds to tell us something about what I would do with Battersea Power Station starting now.
I would not...
The hesitation?
No, of course. 55 seconds on the subject, starting now.
Battersea Power Station and what I would do with it. I would knock it down and build a large...
John Fortune.
He hesitated before he thought what he was going to do.
No. That was a dramatic pause.
It was.
Tension. They won't know now, you see, what I was going to do with it, what I was going to build. But the drama and the tension was...
But Nick, they might like to hear what John Fortune's going to do with it, because it was a...
Right, fine.
50 seconds, John. What I would do with Battersea Power Station starting now.
I would turn it upside down and make it a billiard table.
Well said, John, well said. And Derek Nimmo.
He stopped.
Of course he did.
He stopped because they stopped me.
I know.
Bad luck, mate.
Didn't you? It was what is called riding the laugh, but I think he wrote it too long. Derek, back with the subject. To you, 47 seconds, starting now.
I feel so sorry for the dear Princess of Royal, who has to look out her window.
Princess of Royal. Princess of Royal. There is no such princess. The Princess Royal. Or the Princess of Wales. But not the Princess of
When he knows he's wrong, he always looks like you.
That basilisk stare.
That basilisk stare. He knows he's wrong, and he knows but he can't wriggle out of it. That is the way. Right, 43 seconds for you, Tony Slattery, on what I would do with Battersea Power Station starting now.
I know what I'd do with Battersea Power Station. I'd drop it on the Elephant and Castle, because it's an appalling eyesore and a crap landmark. Other uses for the Battersea Power Station would be to dismantle it and then move it 10 inches to the right and put it up again.
Yes. He laughed as he was hesitating. He did. He was trying to cover up.
Yes, all right, I agree with you.
You agree with me?
Yes, I agree with you.
Oh, wow, what a black.
Yes. God,
It's tough sitting next to you.
29 seconds, Nick Revell, on what I would do with Battersea Power Station starting now.
I would not demolish Battersea Power Station. I would drop Michael Portillo and Peter Lilly from separate chimneys at the same time to see who hit the ground first. Not that I would care, as long as I knew it was a high enough fall and that they would both hit the aforementioned...
yes.
Repetition of hit.
See, we're going to hit the...
I was trying to avoid saying ground twice.
I know, you said the heel.
I've already blown it.
Right. 16 seconds with you, Tony Slattery, on the subject, starting now.
I'd put one of the chimneys in Nick Revell's mouth. This might stop him shouting in my ear.
Very true. Right, Nick Revell.
Deviation, it wouldn't stop me shouting. I was just...
No, it'd make
I
you
would
even
just go
louder.
like this.
It would just make you even louder, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
Nick,
You
you've got
probably-
the subject back. 11 seconds. What I do with Battersea Power Station starting now.
Having let two politicians fall from the power station...
yes.
Fall, right.
You were fall.
Oh, he's sharp on that,
Yes,
isn't he?
he has been playing it for 27 years, you know.
Oh,
right.
Just keep harping on that.
I'm not harping, I've just mentioned it, right?
I ought to play with a Zimmer.
I wonder what your pastime was. Right, Derek.
Nicholas has got a bath rug under here.
That's right.
We face him out to sea when we take you to Eastbourne, don't we? You like it, as long as you keep dry.
Tony Slattery, this material isn't going very well.
It's going all right.
Derek Nimmo, 8 seconds.
Better than your tour of universities, but anyway. Sorry, he's on a tour of universities, and often he gets stoned and there's not drugs.
No.
People just... Sorry, Nicholas, I'm sorry. Carry on.
That's all right. I can take it all, and the youngsters like to take me, so that's great. Right, 8 seconds with you, Derek, on... What? You look like a basilisk on occasions, right? 8
Basilisk?
seconds.
No such word. It's just gibberish.
Basilisk! Right, 8 seconds, Derek Nimmo. What I would do with Battersea Power Station, starting now.
What I would do with Battersea Power Station is to knock it down and ask Mr. Quinlan Terry to come along and design a great Palladian mansion like he's done so well at Richmond.
The next round is Tony Slattery. And the subject, my Wimbledon racket. Tony, can you tell us something about that in 60 seconds, starting now?
I once had a dream where I was in the Wimbledon final, curiously, with Martina Navratilova. And the result was the same as it always is when that marvellous tennis player meets her opposition. She licked me clean. Now, the point is, I then decided that I was never going to become a professional player, but I'd start a Wimbledon racket. I would become a tout. I styled myself as Nick, the aforesaid person who deals in black market tickets, and I trolled up and down the Wimbledon High Road I'm so sorry. Without hesitation.
It's definitely
He thought of it some Paul having a blinding flash, wasn't it?
I think he saw the image of himself trolling and it didn't please him at all.
No.
John Fortune, you had a correct challenge of hesitation. My Wimbledon racket is a subject. 29 seconds are left, starting now.
I use my Wimbledon racket, which is only called by that name because it's not used at Wimbledon, but I use it as strained spaghetti.
I suppose is a hesitation.
It is rather, yes. I have to agree with you
22
there.
seconds. You've got your Wimbledon racket back again, Tony, starting now.
I once decided my Wimbledon racket...
Oh, Nick Revell, yes.
Well, he's lost the power of speech, hasn't he?
So you have my Wimbledon racket, and there are 19 seconds starting now.
My Wimbledon racket was made of plywood, which made it very hard to return the ball when I was playing in centre court, funnily enough, against Bjorn Borg, in a dream also, where I... Sorry, I just saw Bjorn Borg.
But Slattery got in first,
Yes,
yes.
hesitation.
5 seconds are left on the subject, Tony, starting now.
Well, I think my favourite Wimbledon racket...
Yes. Yes. And there are 4 seconds for you, Derek, on the subject, starting now.
My Wimbledon racket was given to me by Fred Perry, who won the championship 3 times.
Derek Nimmo was again speaking as the whistle went, gained an extra point for doing so, and he's one ahead of Tony Slattery at the end of the round. And I'm going to change things slightly now. Instead of giving them a subject to speak on, I am going to offer our panelists an object. That thing has opened, and there it is. That was nice and sinister, wasn't it? A little bell in front. John Fortune. Look at it. And can you talk about it in 60 seconds, starting now?
This is obviously a chastity belt upside down, rather like that is the power station. The legs, as I divine, are supposed to go either side of those little holes, and the bell in front is supposed to warn the wearer.
Repetition of supposed to.
Supposed to, yes, supposed to. Bad luck, John. 48 seconds. You've got in there, Tony Slattery. There's the object. Tell us what you can about it in this game, starting now.
Early tennis rackets were not terribly good, as we can see from this object. The idea of trying in 1813 to serve an ace with this on that hallowed turf is just incomprehensible.
Derek Nimmo.
Deviation has got nothing to do with the subject at all.
Absolutely. Talking rubbish.
Looks like an early tennis racket to me, actually. I'll back Tony up on that one.
Right, well, then you keep that to your side of the thing. Derek, you have a correct challenge, deviation. 36 seconds on the object, starting now.
The object was made of metal. It was used for putting over a scold's head with a bell in front to deter her from speaking further. You can see how it can be fastened very firmly at the back. The eyes can look through, and there's a mouth and a nose, and devil's ears. Very popular actor in the West Country, particularly if you go down to Cornwall, where they
yes. I don't know that place. Cornwall.
You're so devious. All be down in the West Country, that's the trouble.
No, they talk most in Cornwall down there. Right, now then, you've got a correct challenge. So, yes, you won't have St. Cornwall. 18 seconds, tell us about this object starting now.
Yes, this Halloween mask of Andrew Lloyd Webber can be yours. If you send £13 care of Just a Minute, it will be sent to you under plain wrapper and in a box. Charm your neighbours and your friends by singing...
yes, Derek.
Deviation, isn't it? Andrew Lloyd Webber, is it?
Well, the similarity is pretty clear to me.
You are very interesting and entertaining, but you're actually deviating from the subject.
Okay.
So back with you, Derek, with 6 seconds to go, starting now.
If you go to the Museum of Medieval... Oh, God, lovely Jake.
I suppose the Museum of Medieval is in Cornwall.
Yeah, that's right, yes. Nick, you have 4 seconds to tell us something about this object, starting now.
This early air-conditioned motorcycle helmet was...
Sorry, no, you've got in half a second.
I thought there was a bit of a pause.
I was letting them laugh. I was letting the audience into the show, wasn't I? I just paused for the laugh, didn't I?
Nick.
You're so lovely when you're angry.
I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. You see, you have half a second on the subject, starting now.
Goes round and...
Right. So Nick Revell was then speaking as the whistle went and gained a point and won just before, and he's still in third place.
Can you tell us what it is?
I will tell you what it is, but actually we have to give a bonus point to Derek Nimmo because he did actually deduce what it was. Derek, you were absolutely right. It is a widow's scold, a medieval device to prevent a widow in mourning from being tempted to kiss anybody or indulge in any other kind of frivolity. Mind you, she could have indulged in other frivolity just over her head. Another part of anatomy was quite clear. But anyway, that's
the government are thinking about bringing these back, aren't they? In the new Back to Basic Moral Values campaign that they're
that's gone down very flat. I think
that's a modern one.
I think we'll all take
it in every time. You're a jolly good girl. You're trying to be witty and amusing.
I know.
It tells everybody you're dying. It's horrid, I think. Absolutely horrid.
Thank you, Derek.
You've always been like
You're
this.
not nearly as bad as the things you say about me. Right, I think we should all take a break now and try and get to know each other just a little bit better in a jacuzzi of warm tara masala. So we'll see you all after this.
Play Just a Minute with the Evening Standard.
Welcome back to Just a Minute and the second half of our mission. So let's boldly go into the unknown territory of the next round. And here, I don't give a subject to our panelists. I ask our audience to suggest a subject on which they would like them to speak. Any ideas for subjects from our audience?
Luton Airport.
Luton Airport, yes, we've had that. Yes?
Chatham Dock.
Chatham Dock. Okay, yeah. Obviously a native of that area, right, yes?
Pulling at the Hammersmith Palais.
Pulling at the Hammersmith Palais?
Yes, sir.
Oh, God, I'm talking. Anyway, Derek, we wanted to begin the run. Would you like to talk about pulling at the Hammersmith Palais?
No.
Would you prefer one of the other subjects then?
No. Right? I'll talk about Luton Airport, if you like.
All right, talk about Luton Airport, all right. So he's a bit shy about pulling at the Hammersmith Valley. So he's going to tell us something about Luton Airport, 60 seconds starting now.
Luton Airport is probably one of the most unpleasant airports in the whole wide world. I've been to all 5 continents, and apart from Hobart in Tasmania, it is quite the nastiest that I've ever seen. Principally because when you
John
get
Fortune challenged.
Hobart isn't a continent, is it?
No, I'm talking about places in continents.
You're talking about in continents?
All 5 continents. I mean, Luton Airport isn't a continent either, is it?
Disagree with the challenge, so you get another point. 48 seconds, Luton Airport starting now.
They always have trolleys there, but when you get hold of them, they have one wheel that turns left. And you go downhill, hating desperately to pull them back. Why are you hanging onto your bum like that? You miserable bugger you. I want to talk about Luton Airport. Don't you go on like that. It is...
Yeah, right, you challenge first, Nick. You had a correct challenge of deviation. You take up the subject, Luton Airport, 37 seconds starting now.
The curious thing about Luton Airport is that when one is not seeing Lorraine Chase drinking a... Oh, bugger! I was going to say the brand, wasn't I?
Yes, right.
She wasn't actually drinking our bugger, she was drinking something quite different.
Derek, you had a correct challenge.
Yes.
And there are 31 seconds on Luton Airport starting now.
7-4 dittos very seldom take off from that particular place because the runway is not long enough. I'm Chinese. I'm Chinese.
Very good, very good. No, they have runways in Hong Kong, but not over there.
The runway not long enough.
No.
Oh, what airport?
25 seconds, Luton Airport with you, Tony, starting now.
I visited Luton Airport the other week and I met someone called Group Captain Sir Arnold-Bagshot. I said, "Are you writing a book?" He said, "Yes, it's about pulling the Hammersmith Valley." And then I decided to get onto a plane and seek my fortune. But it didn't take off because the runway was iced and slippery and there was too much fog. And so
yes.
It was only the other week, it wasn't iced.
The other week? Well, the other week...
not this one.
He was using a colloquial...
Right.
The other one. Because he's only conscious 2 or 3 weeks every few years. One of the other ones when I was, like, together.
No, I think it would be a harsh challenge against you, Tony. So you keep the subject. 5 seconds. Luton Airport starting now.
the thing about eating in the...
So that's what happens someday. Yes, Nick, you...
He appeared to vomit in the act of trying to talk. Which I presume is deviation and hesitation.
Yes, but you only get 1 point. 3 seconds. Luton Airport, Nick, starting now.
Last time I was at Luton Airport, Derek Nimmo ran me over on a shopping trolley, which he was...
Let that whistle start. Revell. Nick Revell was then speaking as the whistle went and gained an extra point for doing so. He's moved up to 3rd place. Derek Nimmo still in the lead, just ahead of Tony Slattery. John Fortune is trailing a little, and I think it's... No, Nick, it's your turn to begin. The subject is the angel. Can you tell us something about the angel in this game starting now?
The Angel, of course, is a tube station on the Northern Line in Islington. I'm very fond of this particular place because it's near where I live. It is also a square on the Monopoly board. Every time I travel there on a tube, I'm delighted because now they have escalators rather than the lift where you used to have to sit and wait for hours and hours and hours and hours until somebody interrupted you for repetition, and it's always Tony Slattery.
So it wasn't, it was Derek Nimmo got in first. Right, 40 seconds, Derek, on the angel, starting now.
I suppose the angel must be the Archangel Michael, the king, the prince of the heavens. Beneath him are many other angels, all subservient to him. What'd you push his hand for? What on earth did you push his hand for? Did you witness that, lady Jellied? He actually pushed John Fortune, pushed his hand.
I was just about to press my...
Well, he might well have been, but you didn't do it. He did it.
And complain about deviation.
That's right. And John Fortune is entitled to have a little help from the chairman. But
Why?
He hasn't, because he's only played it once, never played it before, and you played it for 27 years.
This is
so,
true.
John, I give you the benefit of the doubt. Yes, a good challenge.
What?
Well listened. And 29
Can we hear what
seconds.
the challenge is for a start?
Well, the hesitation and deviation, yes. 29 seconds, John, starting now.
Walking away from the Angel tube station, I often turn right and move down the hill towards the City Road. I do this because my grandmother used to live in the City Road, where she had...
Repetition of City Road.
Oh, very true.
Tony Slattery. Correct challenge. 18 seconds on. To get the angel, of course. Yes, starting now.
I had a dream the other day and I was visited by a vision in white. It was Margaret Rutherford. She has ascended into the great heavens where all the best actresses go. She said, I am the angel, come to take you to the celestial paradise that is my domicile. Take my hand and I will show you...
So Tony Slattery was then speaking as the whistle went. Again, an extra point for doing so. And I'm afraid we have no more time for just a minute this week. So Tony did very well in that round, but he didn't quite catch up with Derek Nimmo. So, with the most points scored, our winner this week, Derek Nimmo. And our chief engineer tells me that the dilithium crystals that are throbbing in the engine room of this mighty show cannot take it any longer. So it only remains to say good night from Tony Slattery, Nick Revell, John Fortune, Derek Nimmo, and myself, Nicholas Parsons. Until the next time we beam ourselves down into your homes to play Just a Minute. From then, from all of us, good night.
And those crystals will be wrapping up again at the same time next week.
Welcome to Just a Minute, the fast and sometimes dangerous exercise in group hysteria that is television's answer to intelligent conversation. I have with me my regular partner in crime, television's usual answer to the question, who on earth can we have on our show tonight? Yes, it is. It's Tony Slattery! And next to Tony, an entertainer from Britain's longest-running improvised comedy show, The House of Commons. He's not exactly the Labour Party's answer to Geoffrey Archer, but if you ask him in private, he'll willingly provide one. It is Tony Banks. On my right, a stand-up comedian, actress, writer, famed for her sharp one-liners. In fact, she's been in the dressing room stropping them on the bit of old leather just half an hour before the show. It's also Red Dwarf's answer to the fact that there are too many men in that show, and in this show probably. It's Hattie Hayridge! We have a ludicrously talented comedian, presenter, who appears regularly on Paul Merton the series and Whose Line Is It Anyway? A founder member of the Comedy Store Players. He's just a minute's answer to the question, who's that bloke sitting next to Hattie Hayridge? It is Neil Malarkey! The rules of Just a Minute are very simple until you try to play the game. I ask each panelist to try and speak on the subject that I give them, and they do that, if they can, without hesitation, without deviating from the subject, or out repeating anything except the subject. Right. They can... It's very simple. They can... Welcome to play school. They can challenge whenever they like, and if I uphold the challenge, they gain a point, and if not, then whoever is speaking gains a point. We'll begin the show this week with Tony Slattery. Tony, the subject we've got for you now is Heathrow. Will you tell us something about that in this game, starting now?
Well, it suddenly just occurred to me that in the book Wuthering Heights, if Heathcliff were called Heathrow, it wouldn't be as romantic, because then Cathy would have to be called Stansted.
Yes, Neil, you've challenged.
Hesitation?
Yeah, I think so, yes. Neil, I think it was hesitation. So, Neil. First time on the show, you've got in very rapidly there.
Thanks, Nick.
You get a point for a correct answer. You have 50 seconds to tell us something about Heathrow, starting now.
Heathrow, it is not usually discussed in private circles of which I am a member. Has more...
Hattie.
Hesitation?
No, dear Hattie, it wasn't.
Yeah. Hammy. Can you get marks for Hammy?
Didn't talk like that in the green room.
I know he
He's like,
I never heard him puts it on. I think if he gets any slur, it would be hesitation.
Oh, right.
You're teetering on the edge of hesitation. But it wasn't on that occasion, Hattie. So, Neil, you have a point for an incorrect challenge. You keep the subject. Heathrow, 43 seconds are left, starting now.
Heathrow has 2 tube stations, one the Terminal 4, and the other serves the other places where you can land.
Repetition of other.
Yes, the other.
Yes, the other serves the other.
Okay. Tony Slattery, you have a point for a correct challenge. 35 seconds. Heathrow starting now.
I tried to smuggle a Val Dunican video through customs in Heathrow, but they searched my bag. And then the officer said, put it back in the case. I said, do it yourself, fish face.
And, Neil.
Repetition of case?
Yes. I've tried to search my case, put it back in the case. Well done, Neil, yes. You have a correct challenge. Well done. Does that mean you're going to go a bit faster now? Neil, 24 seconds on Heathrow starting now.
Heathrow is the busiest international airport in the entire world. Busier even than Denver, Colorado.
Yes. Happy challenge.
Busy and hesitation.
No, you can't have both. Which do you want?
Whichever one's right.
Neither's right.
He did hesitate, definitely. Hattie, well listened. You have the subject, which is Heathrow. You have a point, of course. 16 seconds are left, starting now.
I once knew a man who lived near Heathrow Airport who spoke.
Neil.
Sorry, I was entirely wrong.
Entirely wrong, Neil. You're too keen.
Sorry, I'm a little...
You challenge so quickly and speak so slowly. But anyway, no, Hattie gets a point because it was a wrong challenge. So Hattie, you have another point. You have 13 seconds. Heathrow starting now.
This male friend used to speak louder every 30 seconds because he got so used to the planes going over while he was at home, and it made conversation very difficult if you weren't that very much...
Neil Malarkey.
Well, which can I choose? Very, I think, was repeated.
Very and hesitation, but very you gave me the first. Neil, you cleverly got in with only 2 seconds to go.
Heathrow!
I thought they'd be impressed with that. It doesn't make any difference, right? 2 seconds on Heathrow, Neil, starting...
I'm sorry, I realise I haven't said anything. I'm probably made of cellophane and you're the speaker. But I thought there was hesitation there, which is why I did that, because he was thinking what I can say for 2 seconds, and clearly he could say nothing and he hesitated. I think it's a point for me.
Order. Tony.
Sorry, Freud doesn't speak like that.
No, she said, order. Rather much.
They both sounded exactly the same.
He's got a much higher voice.
Tony, she has a much higher voice. Tony, we won't score anything there, but it's very nice to hear from you. The thing was, you start when I say now, and I hadn't said now, that's why I hadn't begun, you see. Neil, you have 2 seconds left on Heathrow starting now.
Heathrow is a place I've spent many...
And whoever is speaking at that moment gains an extra point, and it was Neil Malarkey on this occasion. Right, we move forward. Hattie Hayridge, will you take the next round? The subject is, if I was Prime Minister. There are 60 seconds in which you can tell us something about that, starting now.
If I was Prime Minister, I would hold a national competition.
Neil.
I thought it was if you were Prime Minister.
Oh, Neil, you're being picky. The subject is, if I was Prime Minister. Take the subject anyway.
So if Nicholas Farns was Prime Minister?
Well, damn sight better than John Major, wouldn't he? Oh, nasty political stuff coming in there.
Right. No, you take the subject anyway, which did you wish. Hattie, you have a point for being interrupted again. There are 57 seconds if I was Prime Minister, starting now.
If I was Prime Minister, there would be a competition to see if anyone in the whole country understood what inflation was, what the whole idea of anything like that was, and...
I think it was a bit of a
hesitation. Not surprised.
Can I get one?
We're just a bit faster on the button than myself.
I know. Well, you'll catch up, no doubt, like your party might one day.
How long does this programme run for?
46 seconds with you, Tony. If I was Prime Minister, starting now.
If I was Prime Minister, I'd turn the House of Lords into a virtual reality death zone with lasers, so the old buffers could just punch...
Now, that was hesitation.
That was definitely hesitation. You're in there,
already
Tony.
is a death zone.
Right,
anyway.
No. You'll find the law of averages on this show always means that everybody gets a fair show at some time or other. Right, 39 seconds are left for you to tell us. If I was Prime Minister, Tony, what would you do starting now?
If I was Prime Minister, the first thing that I would do would be to abolish homelessness, poverty, and all those other nasty things that actually attack our society. That is the right-on serious bit that I'm going to give you tonight. I would also pass a law that no one could actually beat Chelsea Football Club at Stamford Bridge, which means that we would actually win something rather like...
Neil.
We've had several would actuallys, I think.
Yes, you would actually. You would actually, yes.
Well, you would actually if I was speaking.
Neil, you've got in with 18 seconds on this subject. If I was Prime Minister, starting now.
If I were Prime Minister, what wouldn't I do? I would make Take Dick Store.
Yes.
That's just gibberish, isn't it?
Then he would make a very good Prime Minister.
Yes, we've heard a few like him, haven't we? Right, Tony, you in there with another point, 13 seconds. If I was Prime Minister, starting now.
If I were Prime Minister, I would set up something called a pants advisory service, where people would phone up and say, I'm wearing grey slacks after the fashion of Nicholas Parsons. And then I'd fine them with VAT on 100% of what their clothes meant.
Rubbish. Slattery was then speaking as a whistle and gained an extra point for doing so. He's moved into second place behind Neil Malarkey. Tony Banks, it's your turn to begin, and the subject is Waterloo. Would you tell us... I always have to say now, Tony. I know you haven't played the game before. Waterloo, 60 seconds, starting now.
I had an ancestor who actually died at Waterloo. He wasn't involved in the battle itself. He was camping in a field close by and went down...
Neil, yes, hesitation? No, Neil, you're too sharp for words. Right, 51 seconds. Well, no point, Tony Banks. Waterloo, starting now.
And went along to complain about the noise. He was butcher, which seemed the most unfortunate thing to do to one of my ancestors.
Neil.
Didn't you say ancestors before?
Yes, you did mention your ancestors before.
Yes, I was looking at you because I knew I'd done that.
Right. So, Neil, you have the subject. Waterloo, 42 seconds, starting now.
Waterloo is a station from which I used to catch a train. It would stop at Clapham Junction, Wimbledon, Surbiton, Hinchleywood, Claygate, Oxshott Common, Effingham Junction, Hall...
There isn't a station called Oxshott Common. It's Oxshott Common.
Neil, I'm not going to give that one against you, so you have another point. Incorrect challenge. 33 seconds, Waterloo, starting now.
Effingham Junction, Horsley.
Repetition of Effingham Junction, he said it before.
Yes.
We went through that.
Absolutely.
I was about to say that he had repeated Effingham Junction and Hattie Hayridge. You have the subject. There are 32... You see, it gets to me. Right, there are 32 seconds on Waterloo with you, Hattie, starting now.
Waterloo is a station near a place called Waterloo, and that is quite a coincidence. I wonder how they thought of it. It is full of trains, but there is one section of it where there's a platform which leads in from the Channel Tunnel where there are no trains, not like... Ow!
I'm afraid trains.
Yes, don't get that many usually.
Exactly.
So back in on Waterloo, 18 seconds starting now.
Well, the Battle of Waterloo was caused by a bloke called Napoleon.
I'm sorry, but that was repetition. You said Battle of Waterloo.
You said battle before.
You said battle.
The subject's only
Don't
Waterloo.
look at me like that. It's only a game. It'll be up with the mace next.
Tony Slattery, correct challenge. Another point to you. Waterloo, 15 seconds starting now.
Waterloo Common is where I first met Neil Malarkey.
Hesitation there, definitely.
No, but there's no Waterloo Common as well. No. So, Tony, we'll give it to you on the other one. 12 seconds for you on Waterloo. Tony Banks, starting now.
Waterloo is a station, as we already know. It is also a bridge, all named after that very famous punch-up in a field somewhere in Belgium.
I'm sorry, that's repetition of field.
You mentioned the field.
I'm not very good at this, am I? That's right.
Very good. Don't despair, Tony, it's a tough game. But your ancestor was in that field, and I'm afraid Tony Slattery remembered it.
But that was a lie.
But everything you say is a lie.
But I don't normally get caught out, so...
He was waiting for the station to be built. Was he in that field?
You have 1 second, Tony, on Waterloo, starting now.
I'm in the mood for dancing.
Tony Slattery was speaking once again when the whistle went. Gained an extra point for doing so, and he's just increased his lead at the end of the round. Now, instead of giving the panellists a subject, I'm going to offer them an object. Soon...
That was just that sample that I passed a moment ago.
It's a sample of... We've all passed at different times, I think, but anyway, there we are. So there is the object. Hattie, we'd like you to talk about it first. Will you tell us something about this object in this game, starting now?
This is an example of cappuccino when you've tipped away...
Neil.
Hesitation?
Yes, there was hesitation. I'm not surprised looking at that. Where is the object? There we are. The object should be right. Neil, a correct challenge. Will you tell us something about this object? You have 56 seconds left, starting now.
This interesting vessel contains some French onion soup, prepared earlier by Clement Freud in a fit of pique that I could describe only as a passing trauma known previously to a volcanic tribe in Etruria. A strange...
Where was that?
Etruria, near Stoke-on-Trent.
You didn't say Etruria, though. You said
Well, it's a bit nearer Stoke-on-Trent.
No, I gave you the benefit of the doubt last time, Neil. This time I must give it to Tony Slattery. Tony, there's the object. 39 seconds. Talk about it, please, starting now.
This is the latest perfume. It's called Grunge. And you dab it on your pulse points, and then you go down trolling the West End, and...
Right, hesitation.
No, there was no hesitation. No, there wasn't hesitation.
Repetition of yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Repetition of yeah. You've got that one. Well done, Hattie. Yes. Yeah. That's what I meant to say. Yeah. Right, there's the object. Back with you, Hattie. 22 seconds, starting now.
This is an example of Thames water when it has been filtered at least 17 times. Prior to this, it looks even worse, and nothing like the wonderful specimen we see here in front of us, which is...
Sorry. Totally incorrect. Something happened to my hand. I just don't know what it was. I mean, it just suddenly... I just lost control of it. I just lost control of it. I withdraw the challenge.
But it doesn't... Well, all that happens is that, Hattie, you were interrupted. You get another point for that. Of course. And you keep going with 10 seconds on the object, starting now.
It's a wonderful colour example of...
Sorry, hesitation. That was hesitation, I'm afraid, Hattie. Tony Slattery, another point, 7 seconds. There's the object, starting now.
The last time Nicholas had his ears syringed...
You're deviating horribly from this thing here. It's got nothing to do with what's inside your ears. I've seen Nicholas. I happen to know.
Certainly, whatever's in my ears isn't that colour. I can assure you. So, Neil, I agree with the challenge. 5 seconds, Neil Malarkey. 5 seconds for Neil Malarkey on the object, starting now.
This is some salad dressing.
Hattie, you cleverly got in with half a second to go.
Well done.
On the object, starting now.
This is a brown piece.
Well Henry's then got the point for speaking as the whistle went, and at the end of that round, Hattie's moved forward. She's now in 3rd place behind Neil Malarkey. Tony Slattery's in the lead, and Tony Banks is trailing a little. And now I'll give a bonus point to anybody who can tell me what they think that actually is. It is a substance.
Is it wine?
It is a wheel substance.
A wheel substance?
A wheel substance that we brought up.
Round and round.
No, not the container, not the... What is in it? You were very close, actually, Hattie. It is Thames water. Yes, it is water and mud gathered from the Thames under Waterloo Bridge. Isn't that interesting? Half a point each. It's gone back down to the bowels of the Thames now. Right. So, as you were closest, Hattie, you get a bonus point for that.
Wow.
After that edifying free-for-all, it's time for us to kiss and make up. So we'll take a break here, and we'll see you in a couple of minutes after this. Welcome back to Just a Minute. We've only got a few minutes left, so let's roll up our sleeves, soil our hands, and your minds with our next round. And this round, I'm not going to give a subject to our panelists. I'm going to ask our audience to suggest one. So anybody in the audience got any subjects they'd like? Yes, there's a lady there. What would you like them to speak about?
The London telephone boxes.
Yes, what about them?
Yes.
Yeah, what about them? Any other suggestions? Yes, the girl down there, yes?
The Tory party.
The Tory party, yes. There's not much to say about them. Gentleman in the back there?
London taxi drivers.
Well, Neil, look, we'd like you to start. Which would you like?
I quite like telephone boxes,
You can
actually.
have it.
Yes.
Yes, you're going to start. You choose. London telephone boxes. There are 60 seconds. Neil Malarkey, starting now.
London telephone boxes are often...
that was hesitation. That was quite hesitation, definitely, Tony Banks. So the subject is London telephone boxes, starting now.
What I found amazing is that they took away those red London telephone boxes and replaced them with these nasty glass cubicles, which I always thought were urinals, judging by the smell that one actually got from the water. And now they are replacing yet again those cubicles, which I've said already once before, I understand. And please can I have the point?
Words right out of my mouth.
Yes. So, Neil, you challenge first, so you have London telephone boxes back with you. 23 seconds, starting now.
London telephone boxes are a joy to behold. I like to go in there and write poetry. Last week I wrote a stanza, I've written...
I said, well, it's the same objection as last time. It was complete rubbish.
14 seconds on you, with you, starting now. Neil, yes.
Hesitation.
Yes, it's come up again. Hesitation. Neil, London telephone boxes back with you. 13 seconds, starting now.
London telephone boxes are frequented by members of the House of Lords. When they want to cogitate upon matters of state, they go to the London...
Sorry, it is his hand. I don't know what I've been doing with it, but he keeps sort of leaping onto the button. You know?
He was doing the right thing. That was hesitation.
It was
Tony
hesitation.
Banks. Well,
yes.
4 seconds for you to tell us something about London telephone boxes, starting now.
I always thought that London...
Neil.
Always.
Yes, you did say always before. I'm very sorry.
I want to see a reprise here. I want you to go back to those tapes. I swear I didn't. On my life, you can believe me, I'm a politician.
But it's the audience, if you like. Did he say always before? It's... God, they're all Labour voters out there. All right, Tony, you had the benefit of the doubt from the audience.
There must be German referees out there.
3 seconds on the subject, Tony, starting now.
I well remember London telephone boxes when they had those very interesting coins.
Then speaking as the whistle went, and he gained a point, of course, for doing so, and he's moved into third place. In the lead equal are Tony Slattery and Neil Malarkey. And, Tony, it's back with you to start. Oh, what a lovely subject for you, the Dagenham Girl Pipers. Will you tell us something about them? Starting now.
I went to see the Dagenham Girl Pipers perform at the Carnegie Hall. Weirdly, the hall... Oh,
Yes.
Hesitation.
Yes. You don't just say it like that. Just speak normally for a change.
You'll be lucky.
Dagenham Girl Pipers with you, Neil Malarkey. 54 seconds starting now.
The Dagenham Girl Pipers were worried. They had financial cutbacks. What were they going to do? The leader said to them, girls, I don't know what I'm going to do. We run.
Right.
Going to do.
You did that. Too much, yes.
That's right, I was in there with him.
Is it your hand again?
That's the hand.
Yes, Slattery, right. 44 seconds. Dagenham Girl Pipers starting now.
The Dagenham Girl Pipers had been on the booze all night. They rampaged through London town, their scimitars and swords and sabres glittering in the moonlight. They were after blood and...
I'm very sorry. I mean, I realise that you were into your flow, as they say, but the Dagenham Girl Pipers didn't go round with scimitars. And that's complete deviation. It was bagpipes.
Yes, so that was deviation. Well done. You see, your left hand is better than your right.
Definitely. That's what I keep telling John Smith.
Oh, really?
You seem such a normal
guy. We are getting revelations about his sighting here, aren't we? Right. 32 seconds. The Dagenham Girl Pipers starting now.
I once went out with the Dagenham Girl Piper's mother. I found her a fascinating person because she could do some weird and interesting things with a set of bagpipes, which is something, of course, the Dagenham girl pipers were known to be very, very proficient at. Yes, of course, very, very, yes, I... Yes,
18 seconds.
it was getting very interesting as well at that point.
The Dagenham girl pipers are back with you, Tony Slattery. 18 seconds, starting now.
Hésitation. Hesitation.
Why do you...
I don't know.
What is all this? I mean, it's what we call in show business overacting, actually. 17 seconds for you, Neil, on the Dagenham girl pipers, starting now.
The Dagenham girl pipers were playing football against Everton.
Yes, a hesitation. That was a hesitation, yes. 12 seconds more for the Dagenham girl pipers, Tony Slattery, starting now.
The fingering techniques of the Dagenham girl pipers were taught by one Tony Banks. It's called the left-hand method. John Smith uses it as well. It gets so out of hand, and then when they play...
Who's challenged? Yes, you have, Neil.
Hand?
Twice?
Yes, 2 hands, right.
Yes.
There's half it. Neil Malarkey,
Best to use both hands.
You've got in with half a second to go.
I'll try again.
On the Dagenham girl pipers, starting now.
The Dagenham.
So Neil Malarkey was then speaking as the whistle went and getting an extra point for doing so. I'm afraid that we've run out of time, so I'll give you the final score. Well, Hattie Hayridge, who hasn't played the game before, did very well. She finished in 4th place. But it was a very good 4th place. And Tony Banks, who again hasn't played the game before, did a little bit better. She was in 3rd place. And Neil Malarkey, who's never played the game before, he finished in the lead alongside the man who has played the game before. And they are our joint winners, Tony Slattery and Neil Malarkey. Some of us here have not told our parents where we are tonight, so we'd better be off before we get into trouble. So it only remains for me to say, from my guests, Tony Slattery, Tony Banks, Hattie Hayridge, Neil Malarkey, and myself, Nicholas Parsons, until the next time they release us into the television community, good night from us all. Good night.
Well, that was the last in this series of Just a Minute. And next Thursday at 10:40, we can see the Golden Arrows, the British Television Advertising Awards.
Play Just a Minute with the Evening Standard. Play Just a Minute with the Evening Standard.
Hello and welcome to Just a Minute, a friended game of linguistic mastery and submission between 4 consenting adults, with myself trying to keep a little control and muscling in whenever someone makes a mess. And it can get very messy on occasions. And as is usual on television, this show does have a Tony Slattery. And our Tony Slattery tonight is Tony Slattery! Next to Tony, a great performer who, since leaving her day job as a psychiatric nurse, has steadily emerged as a highly original and acerbic comedienne. Her increasingly frequent television credits include Absolutely Fabulous and a regular guest on The Brain Drain, the wonderful Jo Brand. On my right, another actor and comedy store player. Insiders say he's comedy improviser par excellence. He's not above learning lines from time to time. He co-starred in Terry and Julian with Julian Clary, the very talented and funny Lee Simpson. And lastly, A man who some say actually invented improvised comedy when he accidentally stumbled into a matinee performance of The Mousetrap and took 1 hour and a half to talk his way off. A regular with the Comedy Store Players, and whose line is it anyway? He still hasn't got a clue what he's going to say. Yes, it's Jim Sweeney! Those the panelists who this week are going to try and play Just a Minute, a very simple game until you try to play it. The rules are simple. I ask them to speak on a subject that I give them. They try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviating from the subject. They challenge when they wish. If I uphold the challenge, they gain a point, and if not, the one who's speaking gains a point. By the way, they can repeat the subject. It is in front of me. And the subject in front of me for the first one is the London Marathon. Tony Slattery, will you begin the show and talk on that starting now?
Well, I suppose the London Marathon should now be adequately renamed the London Snickers. Bit of a joke, but we'll pass on from that. It's a test of human endurance, really, and lung capacity. It's immensely unfunny, I think, when people dress up as nuns or dress as Goofy or other characters like that.
Yes, Lee.
Definition of dress?
That's right. Dress up as nuns and dress as Goofy. Lee, well, listen. Yes, 44 seconds are available. Lee gets a point for a correct challenge. He takes over the subject. It is the London Marathon starting now.
I entered the London Marathon a little while ago. I've done it very well there, actually. Very well indeed.
Tony Slattery, you had a correct challenge. You have a point for that, of course. 42 seconds are left. The London Marathon starting now.
It's true what Lee Simpson says. He, in fact, did go into that competition and, I believe, came 1,007th. As there were only 500 entrants, it was a bit of a shame. But then the timekeeping wasn't terribly good on that particular day. It was over Southwark Bridge, and then...
Yes, Joe Brand.
He said over twice.
That's right, he's been over. So, Joe Brand, first time playing the game, has got in with her first challenge. She gets a point for that, and she takes over the subject, which is the London Marathon, and there are 21 seconds left, starting now.
I did consider entering the London London? Hurrah! I've bugged it up already.
Yes,
I buzzed myself.
I know you did, but I'm afraid Jim buzzed you before that.
But I second that buzz.
Jim, you have a correct challenge, and you get a point for that, and you take over the London Marathon, 17 seconds, starting now.
The idea of entering the London Marathon is a complete and utter mystery to me. The thought of running 26 miles without a break or stopping off anywhere for a pint of lager or maybe a pint of Guinness, let alone
definition
of pint. Too many pints to get my hands on.
Right, Tony Slattery, you've gone in with 8 seconds on this subject, starting now.
Jim's idea is a much better one, to have a marathon consisting entirely of visiting every pub in London in the space of 5 minutes and drinking yourself into...
When that whistle goes, it tells us that 60 seconds are up. And whoever is speaking at that moment gains an extra point. On this occasion was Tony Slattery, who at the end of the first round is in a strong lead. Joe Brand, will you take the second round? The subject we've got here, Whipsnade Zoo. Will you tell us something about that in this game, starting now?
Whipsnade Zoo is outside London, so it's not that place there. And I'm talking... but I'm carrying on, so it's all right, I haven't hesitated just yet. At Whipsnade Zoo, you find animals. Giraffes are not very good to get off with because it's rather difficult to climb up that high and give them a bit of a tickle. Lions, on the other hand, are good value for money, I've always found. And you can steal their dinner as well, which is always a bit of a bonus, I think. Pandas, on the other hand, are very boring because they don't do anything. They go on...
Lee, you've challenged.
Yeah.
On the other hand?
On the other hand, yeah.
Yes,
yeah, you repeated,
she did repeat on the other hand.
On the other hand, I might not have done.
Lee Simpson had a correct challenge. He gets a point for that. And the subject is Whipsnade Zoo, and there are 30 seconds left, starting now.
Mummy, why has the monkey got a red bottom? That's what I used to ask, and my mummy would never tell me.
Joe.
Mummy.
Yes.
Mummy, two mummies. I was
two
adopted.
Mummies, yes. Joe, you've got the subject back. There are 26 seconds left. Whipsnade Zoo starting now. Joe, you challenged.
I can't think of a single thing to say.
So you challenged yourself. What was your challenge?
Hesitation.
Well, that's a correct challenge, Joe.
Do I get a point?
You get a point for a correct challenge. Well done, it's a new way to play the game, isn't it? All right, so Joe Brand has challenged herself. Yes, hesitation. You can't do it too often, though, Joe. There are 25 seconds left on Whipsnade Zoo, starting now.
In Whipsnade
There was a hesitation at the start.
A long hesitation. She didn't go for 1.5 seconds. So, Jim, you got in on 23.5 seconds on the Whipsnade Zoo, starting now.
Whipsnade Zoo is a little zoo in Whipsnade, which I've never been to, but I'd like to go along there one day just to have a look at all the glorious animals in their natural habitat, which is, of course, not at Whipsnade Zoo, but in fact the countries where they came from. But they might have tried to disguise the natural...
Talking absolute cobblers, that's my challenge.
So it is deviation, because if he went there to see them in their natural habitat, he would fail. So, Joe, you got in there with... I'm having to subtract here because I got this thing wrong here. Right, yes.
The pressure's on, ladies and gentlemen.
You have 12 seconds on the Whipsnade Zoo, starting now.
I saw a gorilla in Whipsnade Zoo once and sadly mistook him for my fiancé Derek. He's not a very attractive man and is very hairy, like me.
Oh, yes.
Repetition of very. Sorry, sir.
Yes,
There were two
yes.
varies.
Especially
don't
as you...
cry.
And you've got it with 1 second to go as well.
You bastard.
So you have 1 second to tell us something about Whipsnade Zoo, Tony Slattery, starting now.
Zebras on top.
Yes, yes.
Hesitation.
Yes, I... Joe, half a second on Whipsnade Zoo, starting now.
Giraffes, and I said it already.
But nobody buzzed until after the whistle, so she gets away with her repetition of giraffe, and therefore, speaking as the whistle went, she gained an extra point. And you will be surprised to discover that Joe Brand, first time playing the game, is now in the lead. And Jim, it's your turn to begin the subject. Ealing Studios. Will you tell us something about those wonderful studios in this game, starting now?
The very mention of the words Ealing Studios conjures up memories of all those wonderful films made...
Yes, Tony. You challenge.
Oh, repetition of wonderful.
Right, yes. 56 seconds for you, Tony, on Ealing Studios, starting now.
Yes, of course they are wonderful, as Jim says. They made so many brilliant movies there. They escaped me for the time being, but I'm sure they were.
3 days?
Yes, 3 days, yes. 2 we might get away with, but 3 no. Lee, you... He's getting sharp on the game. Right, so 48 seconds.
The character from the Jungle Book, Jellied.
48 seconds for you, Lee, starting now.
The Man in the White Suit was perhaps my favourite Ealing film. It starred Alec Guinness as a man who made a fabric which...
Yes?
Repetition of man.
Yes, there were too many men,
true.
yes. 48 seconds are left for Ealing Studios. Back with you, Tony Slattery, now.
One of the lesser-known works which came from that estimable studio was I Was a Teenage Bulb Snatcher. It starred Bela Lugosi and Dame Joan Sutherland.
Laughing and hesitation.
No deviation, though, because that never happened.
Well, he's
all right.
deviant,
I'll go for deviation.
I'll go with that one.
Yes, deviation I go for, Joe, and then I will give it to you. 37 seconds for you to tell us something about Ealing Studios, starting now.
One film which was made in the Ealing Studios was Passport to Pimlico, and this is an absolutely ridiculous title for that thing that I can't say.
Jim,
No, sorry, I stumbled in for no apparent reason.
Well, it doesn't really matter. All that happens is that as you interrupted, you've done it more often in your life, I'm sure, but on this occasion you've interrupted Joe, so she gets a point for that.
Sorry about
that. The subject. Ealing Studios, 28 seconds, Joe, starting now.
This particular movie, which refers...
Oh, yes, it's a
hesitation, stumble, reflers.
Yes, it's a tough game.
Reflers is a word that I've just made up, and actually it means...
Yes.
Bong.
So this is a movie which bong.
Yes, haven't you heard that before?
I'm afraid I haven't heard.
Barry Norman says it all the time. Oh, all right.
I think you're struggling a bit, Joe. I think you're struggling.
Nicholas, I'm not struggling in the slightest.
Oh, all right.
I've just had a few too many.
No, I think you were doing very well in the game, but you were struggling just then. That's what I thought. Right, 25 seconds for Tony Slattery. Ealing Studios, starting now.
The reason...
Lee Simpson.
It was very attractive, but I had to do it.
I know.
Ealing
Studios, 23 seconds, Lee, starting now.
Well, they've knocked it
When
down
did
now.
you
They've
change
sold it and knocked it down. I've said knocked it down twice already.
Jim Sweeney.
No, repetition knocked it down.
Of course, 20 seconds, Ealing Studios, Jim, starting now.
Oh, the Lady Killers, the Lavender Hill Mob, all these fabulous pieces of celluloid magic which used to really thrill me on Sunday afternoons, which is when I normally used to see them. I think I've said used to.
Yes, you have. And
I was just going to say you'd said used to.
Yeah, you're right.
You said used to yourself.
That's right. But, so that's repetition.
Pardon me?
Giving it to everyone else, it's like a kibbutz, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, right.
Let's do on kibbutzing. Well,
they all give it to each other, do they?
well, they help out, you know.
Oh, well, I must go and stay there for a time. That's not just what
I think you'd have a very lonely time.
Oh, you rotten thing. I do. But that's what I'm here for. Right. Joe Brand, 10 seconds for you to tell us something about Ealing Studios, starting now.
Ealing Studios is in Ealing, which is fairly obvious, I suppose, for very intelligent people, but some people aren't intelligent.
Repetition of people.
Repetition of people, I'm afraid, Joe, yes.
Oh, please, 10 seconds, and I
know, and Tony Slattery's got him with 2 seconds to go on Ealing Studios, starting now.
Arnold Schwarzenegger never made a movie at Ealing Studios. This was...
Tony Slattery was then speaking as the whistle went, gained the extra point. He's now equal in the lead with Joe Brand at the end of that round. Joe, it's your turn to begin. The subject we've got here is Chinatown. Will you tell us something about that in this game, starting now?
Chinatown is a film starring Jack Nicholson and Meryl Streep, and he is a good actor and she isn't. So the first half of the movie is brilliant.
Deviation. It's Jack Nicholson and Faye Dunaway.
Yes, I'm afraid you're right.
Yes.
No, but I was drunk when I saw it.
Oh, that's all right then.
I thought deviation was going off the subject, not getting something wrong.
Yes, but that was deviating from fact, wasn't it? So, I mean, I think that...
Because they're not even allowed to tell a lie.
Well, you have to test me. I have to make the decisions. I mean, that was something that everybody knows.
So no lying at all. So,
well, you can go into a realm of fantasy or surrealism, but I think from the facts which we all know about...
I have sexual fantasies about Meryl Streep, and I put her in every film. A man or a woman.
But you didn't say that to qualify. Did you say that initially?
Oh, if I qualified.
If you qualified it before you said it, then it would have been, what are you looking at?
Okay. That's all right. It's like being at the UN.
Jim Sweeney.
Not quite.
Correct challenge of deviation. You get a point for that. 50 seconds. Chinatown, starting now.
I personally have a recurring sexual fantasy of having dinner in a Chinese restaurant with Meryl Streep. It all goes horribly wrong when she orders.
Yes.
Hesitation.
Yeah, I think
yes,
the one,
right.
Joe, right.
Oh, it's the thought of Meryl Streep in a Chinese restaurant.
Right. 44 seconds for you to take back Chinatown, Joe, starting now.
Chinatown is also an area in London, in Soho, which I like very much indeed, because you can get a very big dinner there. And the sort of dinner you can get...
Repetition of dinner,
yes.
sorry.
You've had two dinners. Dinner, yes. 32 seconds for you to tell us something about Chinatown, Tony Slattery, starting now.
Curiously enough, I do know the version of Chinatown as a film to which Joe refers. It also starred Reg Varney. But I'm now going to...
Yeah?
It didn't start.
Deviation. Well, yes, you can have it on the same reason. 25 seconds, Chinatown, with you, Joe, starting now.
Chinatown offers delicious meals such as egg foo young and squiggly things that I don't know the name of, but they might be bamboo shoots. I could be wrong. I like to pop down there of a Friday night and stuff my face for 14 and a half hours. And I also have lots of beer because I like to get very drunk indeed. In Chinatown, it is a bit worrying because there are gangs.
So Joe Brown was then speaking as the whistle went, gained an extra point for doing so, and has gone back into the lead. She's 2 ahead of Tony Slattery. Now, I don't offer them a subject to talk on. I present them with an object. And through that black hole comes the object on this show. Doesn't that look disgusting? Tony Slattery, would you try and talk on that object for 60 seconds if you can, starting now?
When I was a choir boy...
Hesitation induced by my laugh, so perhaps it's not fair.
No, it is. Yes, it was hesitation. He thought of when he was a choir boy, and he completely came to a halt. I'm not surprised. Right, Lee Simpson, you got in with 54 seconds to go. You get another point, of course. There's the object. Speak on it, please, starting now.
This piece is entitled Chrome Fat Swan with Plastic Head. It was designed by Lindsay and Sons, a company in the middle of Birmingham. They didn't sell many of them, and it's one of a pair, I understand. If you looked on the bottom, you'd see the markings, which say it was made in 1842 by Jeff Lindsay, who's got the same name as his company.
Repetition of Lindsay.
Yeah.
I know, what a pity, because I can tell you it was actually made by Lindsay. Did you know that?
No, I just read it off the thing. I can
But unfortunately you repeated it, so Tony Slattery got in on repetition. 39 seconds. There's the object, Tony. Talk about it, please, starting now.
One of Arthur Conan Doyle's little-known Sherlock Holmes stories was the case of the pewter thing with the wibbly bit on the end. And he didn't solve it. No wonder, because you can imagine the scene as through a fog-bound London, Moriarty produced this particular artifact and blew it, and it went wah! Like that, and scared all the other villains away, and thus was the aforesaid villain king of...
Yes, Joe.
Repetition of villains.
Well done, Joe. Yes, you had a repetition of villain. So there's 17 seconds left. There's the object, Joe. Can you tell us something about it in this game, starting now?
When I was a nurse and patients were very unwell and in bed and moaning quite a lot about how ill they felt, this object would be used to stuff into their mouths to shut them up. And it was very effective because you stuck the pipe into...
Wow. O'Brien was again speaking when the whistle went. Getting an extra point for doing so. It's a Victorian ear trumpet. They must have
an ear trumpet?
Well done, Jim, but I can't give you a point for it. Right. We're about halfway through this little experiment.
I like that.
I know, it does. I said we're about... We're about halfway through this little experiment in free associative stream of consciousness. So my 4 guinea pigs now have to undergo a medical examination. Yes. We'll see you after this.
Play just a minute with the Evening Standard.
Welcome back to Just a Minute, the show that probes the minds of its guests, digs out the juicy bits, and then spreads them out across the screen. Ah, dear me. I try very hard sometimes. Right, now, I don't give our panellists a subject now. I'm going to ask our audience to suggest a subject on which they would like any one of them, or all of them hopefully, to talk. Any suggestions for subjects from our audience? Right, yes, there's a lady. Quick, that was quick as flash. Yes.
Marks and Spencer's underwear.
Marks and Spencer's underwear. You seem as if you're talking from the heart. Right. Fine, and maybe from the bodice as well. Right, yes, there's a lady up there.
Aylesbury duck.
Aylesbury duck, that's a nice one. Yeah, I like the sound of that, yes. Yes, and gentleman down here?
Game show hosts?
Yes. A bit nervous of that one, with Tony Slattery beside me, yes. What about the gentleman back there, yes?
London Transport.
London Transport, yes. Well, that's what to be said about that, isn't there? Any other ones? Well, Jim Sweeney, I'm going to ask you to start. Is any one of those that particularly appeals to you?
Yes. I particularly like London Transport, which I quite like, but I'll leave it up to you, Nicky baby.
I'll tell you, I'll show you how sporting I am. I stick my neck out on this show, and I'm going to allow them to talk about game show hosts. I'm dreading this, but, Jim, we would like you to start this, so there's the subject. 60 seconds, as usual, starting now.
Game show hosts are often treated very badly, despite the fact they do a very difficult job indeed. Trying to keep...
so repetition of very, quite early on.
Yes, what a pity, because I was enjoying it, actually.
I bet you were.
55 seconds for you, Tony Slattery. Game show host starting now.
Nicholas Parsons has been a game show host on many different programmes, some of them in this century. One of them was called, my favourite in fact, it was named Stick Your Neck Out, with the aforementioned person.
Yes,
there wasn't, hesitation. After a bit of deviation.
Having deviated to that extent, he hesitated. Quite rightly. Lee, you got in with 38 seconds on the subject. Another point, of course, starting now.
Perhaps the most fantastic game show host ever was Ted Rogers with the legendary 3-2-1 and the hilarious Dusty Bin. Oh, how we chuckled. Nearly split our sides we did watching that marvellous TV programme. Jim
Sweeney, you've got... Yes, hesitation. Game show host of the subject, Jim. 24 seconds are left, starting now.
I'm not sure if it counts as a game show, but I always thought that Derek Beatty was very good at hosting There's My Dog, which was possibly the most wonderful programme ever put on the television for years. It involved bringing on a celebrity animal at one point of the canine variety, and you had to guess who that
Yes, Joe, you challenge.
How fair to whom?
Yes. And I also think it was deviation. I don't think it was Derek Beatty who actually introduced that programme.
Well, you're right. It was, who was it?
I've forgotten, but I know it came from down in the west. So
Derek something.
Yeah,
Well, you must have worked with them, though. You worked with everyone. Who was it? Benjamin Disraeli?
No. Joe Brand, you have a correct challenge. You have 8 seconds on. Game show host starting now.
My favourite game show host is Les Dennis, who does something called Family Fortunes, which is a game show in which people come together who are related by blood.
Once again, Joe Brand was speaking as a whistle went and has increased her lead at the end of the round. Lee Simpson, will you take the next round? Yes. It is the sewers of London. Will you tell us something about those in this game starting now?
It is a little-known fact that the final scenes of The Third Man, Carol Reed's atmospheric thriller, were in fact shot in the sewers of London, not Vienna, as it seems in the film. This caused a great many problems for cast and crew, because when the filming started, they had to stop all the sewage coming through. So there was somebody called a crapper boy, whose job it was to stop all the poos from entering shot. Some of the people who started off in this particular role were Alec Guinness, little known, who started off stopping the...
So, a repetition of started off.
Yes.
Started off and stopping, yes, and Alec Guinness stopping the poos running through.
It's a very important job.
It sounds as if the poos had a mind of their own. Keep back, no, you can't come on set. Well, but we want to.
Tony Slattery.
Sorry.
We won't go down any further this particular sewer. 30 seconds for you to tell us something about the sewers of London starting now.
Not many people know that Ralph McTell's hit was originally titled Let Me Take You by the Hands and Lead You Through the Sewers of London. The record company bosses said this was not a good idea.
Jim Sweeney.
Oh, he sort of sneezed or something.
Yes,
Any parrot-faced Davis.
Jim Sweeney, you had a correct challenge there. 19 seconds are left for you to tell us something about the sewers of London starting now.
I imagine it must be fascinating to wander through the sewers of London, which cover such a vast area, but then again it probably isn't, since it reeks.
Joe Brand.
Sort of hesitation, laughing-ish type stuff.
I thought, I don't really want to walk through the sewers of London.
12 seconds. Joe, you've got him once again with only a few seconds to go. The sewers of London starting now.
If you go down into the sewers of London, you'll find that they smell very much like a perfume I recently got for Christmas from my grandmother. My grandfather on the
That was a clever ploy. She led our regular player of the game into there. So, Joe, you get another point for that. You keep the subject, and you had 3 seconds on the sewers of London starting now.
on the other hand, has got quite good taste in scent because...
So, Jo Brand, taking us down the sewers of London until the whistle went, gained an extra point for doing so. She came and has triumphed over the three fellows, Jo Brand! Our 1 score and 10 minutes of time are up, so it only remains to say good night. It is good night from Tony Slattery, Jo Brand, Lee Simpson, Jim Sweeney, and myself, Nicholas Parsons. Until the next time we pop up on your screens with more Just a Minute to desecrate your homes. Until then, from us all, good night!
And Just a Minute will be back at the same time next week.
Play Just a Minute with the Evening Standard.
welcome to Just a Minute. On radio, it's been catching Britain's most entertaining performers with their trousers down for many years. And now, on television, you can actually see the trousers as they come down. They're already sending me up, so let me right away introduce my guest. And as always, by my side, like the faithful young scamp that he is, my resident guest, the often scabrously irreverent, but always immensely entertaining, Tony Slattery. Next to Tony, one of the Comedy Store Players' most prominent and active members, without doubt the most talented improvised comedy keyboard-playing nuclear physicist in the country, Dr. Richard Vranch. On my right, a comedian with show business in his blood. A member of the famous Scouse family Robbins, which includes Kate Robbins, and whose father claims to have discovered Des O'Connor on an archaeological dig. The immense comic... I'm sorry. The immensely comic Ted Robbins! And lastly, one of the funniest comedians around, who also happens to be a highly successful playwright, compere, and chat show host. Ballam's answer to Wandsworth Council. I don't really know what that means. I shouldn't think he does either. It's Arthur Smith! We do have rules in Just a Minute, quite loosely interpreted by me from time to time. What I do is ask them all to speak at different times, if they can, on the subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitating, repeating anything, or deviating from the subject. Or they can repeat the subject, or they've got them the cards, it doesn't matter about that. Anyway, they can challenge whenever they wish. If I agree with the challenge, they get a point and take over the subject. If I disagree with the challenge, whoever's speaking keeps the subject and gains a point. That's how we play. Tony Slattery once more will begin, and you'll stop sending me up for a moment if you dare. Right, Tony, how we survived the Blitz. Can you tell us something about that subject in this game? Starting now.
Well, I survived the Blitz very cleverly by not being born during the war. But if you're talking about how British people generally, with their plucky Cockney spirits, in London especially, survived the Blitz, then I know of one particular family who, in fact, moved to Germany, and that's how they got out of it. Tragically...
Arthur Smith.
You see, there was a Blitz in Germany as well, though,
I would
there?
quite agree, yes.
There were bombs. You couldn't escape by going
I was
to
going on to make a joke about Dresden, which you ruined.
Thank God you didn't.
I'm glad you didn't make any jokes about Dresden, but...
That's right.
Yes, I quite agree, yes. And of course the word Blitz comes from the German word Blitzkrieg. Arthur, you have a correct challenge. So you get a point for that. You take over the subject of how we survived the Blitz. 40 seconds starting now.
We survived the Blitz by...
Ted Robbins.
There was
a big hesitation. He didn't know how he survived the Blitz.
No, I didn't. I died in it. That's the trouble.
Oh, you're a reincarnation. What a fascinating idea.
I came back as this.
Yes. Farmer. Ted Robbins, nice to hear from you. First time on the show, first time to speak. A point already, and the subject, how we survived the Blitz. 36 seconds starting now.
My grandfather always said that during the Blitz, never worry about a bomb getting you, for it had to have your name on it. Now, that was fine for us.
Richard Vranch.
He's doing Paul Merton's material, yeah? It's got to be deviation.
Well, he's got it wrong anyway. They said that it was the bomb you couldn't hear was the one that was destined for you.
All right. And how do you know it was Paul Merton's material?
Because he works at Paul Merton's Comedy Store. This is all frightfully interesting, isn't it?
And who's Paul Merton?
Oh, shame, they said. Richard, I disagree with the challenge. Okay. So, Ted, you want another point, and you keep the subject. You have 30 seconds on how we survived the Blitz, starting now.
We survived the Blitz by regularly playing to ourselves Paul Merton videotapes, which were very enjoyable, especially the bits about a neighbour getting...
I hesitated. You challenged yourself.
Yes. Well, I could feel a big hesitation coming up. So I zapped in there.
Right, well, Ted, I agree with the challenge, actually. You did hesitate.
Do I get a point?
Yes, you get a point. it's a new way to play the game. Challenge yourself. But your challenge was correct. So you have another point, Ted. You keep the subject. You could go on like this and just keep it all to yourself, couldn't you, really? How we survived the Blitz. 21 seconds are left, starting now.
The Blitz, of course, is an abbreviation for the Blitzenkrieg.
Yes.
The abbreviation. I thought there was a little stumble over the double B. Two B's.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. No, and he hasn't played it before. No. 19
He's
seconds.
scoring points by challenging himself. I challenged myself. That's the point. I've been beaten and hesitating. Deviation. I can just go on. Arthur. It's scandalous. Arthur. There are people out there who make their lives by the rules of this game. Look, this we can't have this. Society will crumble if this sort of thing carries on.
Arthur, when you're a Marvel pro like me and Nicholas, love, you pick up a few tips about showbiz.
Right, 19 seconds for you, Ted, on how we survived the Blitz, starting now.
We sang to ourselves merry little songs like Paul Merton is my hero, don't come over.
Paul Merton. Yes, Paul Merton. And of course, well, we've established wasn't around during the Blitz.
He's had plenty of plugs on this show, though, hasn't he?
He has, yes. Have I got news for you, Paul Merton? Right, now, 16 seconds for you, Tony, on how we survived the Blitz, starting now.
I know one family who survived the Blitz by sending up a huge barrage balloon in the shape of Vera Lynn to confuse the Luftwaffe as they were raining bombs.
He said Luftwaffe. It was Luftwaffe. Luftwaffe.
If you say it in German, Luftwaffe.
Luftwaffe. Right now, dear Tony, you have secrets. No, definitely it was Luftwaffe.
That's Welsh.
No, it is German. Vanish was irgendeiner vierten seiner Elbe. Vieles Volk kommt einer Pütten, sagt der Belgier. How we survived the Blitz. You have 66 seconds left, starting now.
Well, we all went down in the underground and we sang old gay songs like My Old Man Said Follow the Band. They were so boring, everyone fell asleep.
That tells us that 60 seconds are up. And whoever is speaking at that moment gains an extra point. And on this occasion, it was Tony Slattery, but he's still in second place behind our leader, who is Ted Robbins.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. And you... Richard Vranch, will you begin the next round? Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. What a lovely subject. 60 seconds to tell us something about them, starting now.
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's fictitious characters Sherlock Holmes and Dr. John Watson lived at 221B Baker Street, London, and it was from this address that they embarked upon their escapades looking for criminal masterminds. The most famous case they ever took on was the one concerning the missing flippers. This was not written up later because no one had the gall to put it in print. However, they went off...
Arthur.
You see, there's some confusion. He says it's fictitious, and now he claims that it's a real case that wasn't written up. We're in some kind of postmodernist nightmare.
Arthur, I agree with your challenge. You have 33 seconds. Tell us something about the good job. Well, you know, I think he was deviating from... no, he wasn't, actually.
What? You've just given me a point. I want the point.
Oh, you can have a point because we enjoyed the challenge. I just wanted to hear from you, Arthur. I like to spread it around a bit there.
Yes, we know.
Richard, you have a point for being interrupted. 33 seconds. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, starting now.
Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson's arch enemy was...
Ted Robbins.
Yes, a stumble there.
Yes, it was a stumble. Yes, Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson's with you. 29 seconds, starting now.
Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson were in fact very successful at Kew Gardens, where they managed to raise a lemon yellow-coloured bush. When asked what this was, he replied, "A lemon tree, my dear Watson."
Oh, Richard Branch challenge.
Not very funny. Lemons.
It wasn't nothing to do with the comedy. It was to do with the fact you repeated lemon.
Two lemons, yes.
Two lemons.
Sorry.
Yes, we can't have two lemons in this show, can we? Right. I stick my neck out sometimes, but it's good.
And that's not all, eh?
Oh, steady on, Ted, steady on. Richard, we'll move rapidly on. 18 seconds, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, starting now.
Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson's adversary was, of course, the Moriarty of...
Yes.
You said Moriarty before.
No, he didn't get it out.
Finale.
He didn't get Moriarty out. I mean, please. No. He tried to, but he failed.
Oh.
Richard, you have another point for an incorrect challenge, and you keep the subject 13 seconds, starting now.
One of their lesser-known enemies was a little...
Yes.
You definitely said enemies before, though.
Yes, enemies, yes. Enemies. Tony. Correct challenge, another point to you, 10 seconds. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson starting now.
Imagine the scene as Dr. Watson enters the velvet room and says, "Shirley, I thought you were in Switzerland." "Nah, that's all you know. I have things about my personality. You..."
Yes. Once again, Tony Slattery was speaking with the whistle and getting an extra point for doing so. He's now caught up with Ted Robbins. They're equal in the lead, just ahead of Richard Vranch. Arthur Smith. Barking Creek.
Are you?
Yes. There is a subject that has been thought up for you to speak about. 60 seconds starting now.
Just near where I live in Balham, there is a large gully where lots of canine animals gather together and make funny noises. This is Barking Creek, after a fashion, but the real Barking Creek, obviously, is in that place that begins with B and ends in ing, otherwise known as banking. Thank God.
I just had a pity of poor old Arthur Mullard Smith here.
Yeah, Arthur Mullard, yes, no, right, he keeps changing. Right, hesitation. Ted, you have the subject of Barking Creek, 39 seconds starting now.
It is correct to say that Barking Creek is populated by small little animals called dogs. I was down there the other day and one little dog got hold of my leg.
And incorrect challenge, I withdraw immediately. No, he said dogs. And then he dog.
Dog, plural.
Sorry.
Well, listen, thank you very much.
Well, shouldn't Tony lose a point now for that?
No, what happens is Ted gains a point, because he was interrupted.
Ted always bloody gains a point.
32 seconds with you, Ted. Barking Creek starting now.
In Barking Creek, a small, ferocious pit bull terrier seized...
yes, we've had a small before.
Yes, you did.
Where?
You were talking about small dogs.
Oh, you're very clever.
Arthur, you've got the subject of Barking Creek back 29 seconds starting now.
When I go to Barking Creek, I take a bag and put it over my head. And that is a great relief to all the residents there, I can tell you. Another thing I do when I go to Barking Creek is I write poetry, like this.
Challenge.
Repetition of
Yeah, that's even more subtle challenge than the hesitation. But you got in with 2 seconds to go, Richard, on Barking Creek, starting now.
Barking Creek is my favourite holiday resort. I've been there 4 times.
Richard Vranch against Stephen Knight. And an extra point for doing so. Ted Rogers is now in the lead, 2 ahead of Tony Slattery and Richard Vranch. We're going to do something slightly different now. Instead of me giving them a subject, I'm going to offer them an object. That was Ray doing the offering from down below in the bowels of our desk, yes. And that stomach came from his insides. And there is the object.
Just to recap, Nicholas, were we right in hearing you say that stomach came from his insides?
Yes.
Just wanted to clarify, that's all.
Yes. I do like to test my panelists to see if they're still awake on occasions. Right. There's the object. Tony Slattery, will you start talking and tell us in 60 seconds if you can something about that object?
The marriage of Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Berkeley reached new excesses on the banks of the Nile in 1976 when her jewellery collection, or so she thought, became so diminished that she desperately wanted a new token of his love. He replied by giving her the Wanky Pom diamond.
Ted.
Isn't that rubbish?
Well, he's certainly deviating from that subject. Yes. Sorry, the object, which is now the subject. Ted, will you tell us something about that object? There are 41 seconds left, starting now.
It is, in fact, the biggest...
It's an incorrect challenge. It was just a knee-jerk reaction.
40 seconds left on the object there, starting now.
Actually, this is a rock.
Yes, Richard.
I think we had a bit of a pause after
You
this.
did, yes. He was trying to get away from in fact. And he paused. Right, 37 seconds before the object. Richard, starting now.
New Age travellers use things like that to get in touch with the ether, that thing which surrounds the entire universe and connects us to our maker. They drive along in their buses, and just in the engine compartment, they have an object like that one instead of an engine. They don't go...
Arthur.
Have we had 2 engines?
No, we had deviation.
I'm sorry, we've had deviation because it's not anything, it's deviation then. That's what I meant to say. How could I have said repetition? Obviously deviation is what I've gone for.
18 seconds, Arthur. Tell us something about that object, starting now.
Let us imagine a very large ice man.
Definitely. Ted Robbins, 12 seconds, starting now.
Do you remember a popular confection called Fox's Glacier Mints? This was the original model based upon that item. In fact, it's the second time I've ever said...
Oh, dear. When you do your stand-up act, you just say, in fact, in fact, in fact.
I just like to lie down, really. You should know that summer season we shared together in Cromer. Very popular, wasn't it?
Correct challenge, Tony. 5 seconds on the object starting now.
This was one of the objects that was thrown at Ted in that summer season in Cromer. The act was so appalling, someone lobbed this giant...
You're speaking as a whistle and getting an extra point for doing so. I will give a bonus point to anybody who can make a stab at guessing what that really is.
Crack cocaine.
No. Oh, they're going to have a go. You can get a bonus if you get it right.
It's part of a building.
No. It's a...
art. Oh, is it a piece of
No,
art?
it's not a piece of art. It's prism. Ian Messiter has it in his home, who thought of this game as a piece of art. So you're quite close, but actually it is a fragment of astronomical glass. It was made for the Greenwich Observatory. The man who actually created it had got this wonderful astronomical telescope he's making. It was all warm. That was a comment on the story. And once it was warm, somebody opened the door of his laboratory, and a blast of cold air came in and destroyed it all. Aren't you fascinated?
Good night, children everywhere.
We reached the halfway mark in our show.
You
Tony
got
Slattery.
through to the Samaritans.
Tony Slattery's taken the lead, just one ahead of Ted Robbins, and then comes Richard Vranch and Arthur Smith as we go into the halfway mark. And as you savour the wisdom of the discourses that you have just heard, we are going to spoil the whole edifying experience with some adverts. We'll see you after this.
Play Just a Minute with the Evening Standard.
Welcome back to Just a Minute, the trendy new improvised comedy show that's been going for over a quarter of a century. We're going to do something slightly different now. Instead of me giving the panelists a subject, I'm going to ask the audience to give them a subject on which they would like one of them to speak. So have we any suggestions for subjects from our very attractive-looking audience here? Yeah, there's one up, the gentleman in the green sweater.
I'd like the panel to discuss Nelson's column, please.
You'd like them to discuss Nelson's column?
Yes.
Yes, all right. Any other suggestions? The lady in the back with the lovely hair, yes.
The first day of the lingerie sale at Harrods.
The first day of the laundry sale at Harrods.
Lingerie.
Lingerie sale. They don't sell laundry. I have a laundry sale. No. Ted, I think you'd like you to begin. What about the Harrods one? That's not bad.
The lingerie sale at Harrods.
Yes. So what about, in fact, the first day of the laundry sale at Harrods? Ted, will you tell us something about that in just a minute, starting now?
In fact, the first day of the lingerie sale at Harrods is usually a complete wipeout because everybody is staying at home watching Just a Minute, where I use the word in fact loads of times because I can use it this time as it's in the title.
Yes.
Two becauses?
Two becauses, though. You can't scratch out in fact out of the dog.
It's your idea.
So, Richard,
we not change it to because, in fact.
Richard, you have a correct challenge. Another point to you, and you have the subject, in fact, the first day of the lingerie sale at Harrods. 48 seconds starting now.
In fact, the first day of the lingerie sale at Harrods is the only day of the lingerie sale.
Yes, Tony.
I'm sorry, I withdraw.
You can't do that in this game. What do you want to say, Arthur?
Oh, yeah, I think I also withdraw.
Well, if everyone's leaving, so am I.
And I can't do the show alone, so Richard Vranch. We have an incorrect challenge. Now, the point to you, in fact, the first day of the lingerie sale at Harrods, 43 seconds starting now.
The lingerie sale at Harrods only lasts 1 day. This is because the...
Yes.
Well, he's done 2 days. He's done about 3 or 4 days now.
I know.
But it's days on
The days on the card. In fact, the first day of the lingerie sale at Harrods.
Only lasts 1 day, but he'd had another day earlier on.
But days on the card.
The day is a part of the subject.
No, but he'd had another...
38 seconds, Richard. In fact, the first day of the lingerie sale at Harrods, 38 seconds starting now.
I queued up outside the front door of Harrods for 7 days because I wanted to buy a particular piece of lingerie. It was a black basque which did up at the front. Very useful if you're doing it on your own. I also purchased a pair of suspenders and stockings. Why did you get that?
Obviously, the purchase of the stockings and suspenders caused him to stumble and falter there.
Yes, a very devious thought as well, but he definitely hesitated. Ted, you have the subject back, which you started with, and it's been very conveniently, it begins with, in fact, the first day of the lingerie sale at Harrods. 20 seconds starting now.
In fact, the first day of the lingerie sale at Harrods is very popular because I go and buy leather posing pouches there.
Richard.
Another because.
Another because.
I'm very... it's not even funny now. It's tedious. Sorry.
Richard, he said because again, repeated himself. 15 seconds on that subject starting now.
Frilly knickers. Those are the things which sell the fastest on this particular day. People go into the shop and hit each other with their handbags because they want that particular product.
Yes, Tony.
Two particulars.
Two particulars, yes. Tony, you've got him with 4 seconds to go on, in fact, the first day of the lingerie sale at Harrods, starting now.
I much prefer the first day of the laundry sale when you can go through other people's pants and say, oh, where'd you get those?
Time for one more round. And it's Tony Slattery's turn to begin. Tony, can you tell us something about the Lord Mayor's show? You have 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
The Lord Mayor's show is something which happens in London. Lots of poncy people in ermine parade up and down the street in the carriages and the horses leaving dung.
Two horses.
There are lots of horses, yes, but you can't repeat the word. 50 seconds are left for you, Richard, to tell us something about the Lord Mayor's show, starting now.
The Lord Mayors show their bottoms when they are inaugurated. This is a tradition that goes back hundreds of years.
Yes. Well, if that isn't deviated, Lord Mayor's bottom's deviating, then I don't know.
It may be a devious thought, but he wasn't deviating from the subject on the card, you see, Ted.
Isn't that what it means?
No. So you keep the Lord Mayor's show, and there are 43 seconds, starting now.
Lady Mayoresses have never been involved in...
Bruce Forsyth. Never...
Tony, will you tell us something about the Lord Mayor's show again? 40 seconds are left, starting now.
I do find the Lord Mayor's show tedious. I think instead of the aforementioned jingle...
Yes.
Is it a pause and a hesitation in the aforementioned...
Yes, all right. So you have another point, and you have 33 seconds. The Lord Mayor's show, starting now.
The Lord Mayor's show is very peculiar as it goes through the window and everybody looks at it and everyone says and everyone says and everyone says and everyone says.
Richard Vranch.
Everyone says.
Everyone says. 28 seconds. The Lord Mayor's show, starting now.
Back in 1823, the Lord Mayor of London decided not to have a show. The whole town...
There's a hesitation there?
Yes, no hesitation. 18 seconds for you. The Lord Mayor's show, Ted, starting now.
The Lord Mayor's show is a magnificent sight. The trooping of the colour pales into significance.
Yes,
stumbled. Depales
into significance, too. Right. 14 seconds. The Lord Mayor's show, Tony, starting now.
I want the Lord Mayor's show to be Oklahoma. That's what I'd like.
He said, that's what I... So you're going to go, the Lord Mayor's show, and I go, it's like a coughing programme, this.
10 seconds. The Lord Mayor's show, Ted, starting now.
As the horses steam away and people follow with little shovels to pick up all the things that drop from the horses, they say, that's very nice.
Yes, Arthur.
Horses.
Yes, there are too many horses. 4 seconds are left for you, Arthur, on the Lord Mayor's show, starting now.
It usually takes place on the second Sunday in November, I believe, but I'm absolutely wrong in saying that, I imagine.
Right. It's a very interesting result this week because out equal in the lead were Ted Robbins, Richard Vranch and Tony Slattery. They all had 20 points. 3 winners! How they got all those points is a mystery. But there we are. That's all we've got time for. If you want to see the show again, you'll just have to look out for a reconstruction of it on Crime Watch. So from Tony Slattery, Richard Vranch, Ted Robbins, and Arthur Smith, and myself, Nicholas Parsons, we hope you have enjoyed the show, and until we burst through on your television screens again, from all of us here, goodbye and good night.
They'll be bursting onto our screens next Tuesday night at the same time of 10:40. Play Just a Minute with the Evening Standard.